Chapter 375. However, the pure sword was still a weapon. She had to learn how to unleash the power of the pure sword by herself, and not let the pure sword freely unleash its power. This was not a good thing for Fengwu, or the pure sword. Before leaving Notre Dame du Starlight, her master had told her to properly learn how to control the pure sword's power. Although the pure sword was very powerful now, it was still a weapon. A weapon could only unleash its greatest power in the hands of a person. Even if the pure sword looked very powerful now, it was still unable to unleash its greatest power. What it needed was its master to unleash its power. Fengwu hadn't had a chance to practice with the pure sword during this period of time. Now, she had a chance to practice with the pure sword. Fengwu used the pure sword to fight against the enemy. The onlookers on the other side of the cliff watched with trepidation. No one thought that Fengwu would be able to survive against such a ferocious ancient corpse alone. It was really a pity. Such a beautiful and cute loli was ruthlessly killed by two ancient corpses. Just now they had more than 40 people besieging an ancient corpse. They sacrificed at least 6 people to fight for a chance to escape. Now Fengwu was facing the ancient corpses alone. The result was obvious without thinking. Among so many people, only Xiazwu was worried about Fengwu. Xiazwu didn't think that Fengwu would die here so easily. To become the master of the wise beast, it was impossible for her to die so easily. He was also the only one who thought that Fengwu wouldn't die. The pure sword in Fengwu's hand emitted a white sword aura, and attacked the two ancient corpses. The two ancient corpses seemed to feel a terrifying power from Fengwu's sword aura. However, the corpses only knew how to kill. They didn't know what fear was. The two ancient corpses faced the sky and roared. That roar made people's eardrums hurt, and their heads swell. Oh my God! This sound is too unpleasant to listen to. It's really unpleasant to listen to. The two people who were crossing the cliff were so shocked by this sound that they almost fell off the cliff. After stabilizing their bodies with great difficulty, the two of them walked even faster, wishing that their parents had given them 2 more legs. Fengwu's sword actually hit the two ancient corpses, and the ancient corpses were destroyed just like that? What a joke. Of course it was impossible. What the sword chi hit was merely an afterimage left behind by the ancient corpse. The real ancient corpse had already dodged Fengwu's attack. Because its dodging speed was too fast, it left behind 2 afterimages. Fengwu identified the source of the sound, and turned around to block from behind. She was forced back several steps by the force. The power of the two ancient corpses was too strong. Their physical strength was simply abnormal. Just one attack from them had the power to split a mountain. Fengwu retreated several steps. After standing firm, she changed the direction of her sword, and used the 9 profound sword art. The 9 profound sword art was the strongest sword art she could use right now. This sword art was passed down by Fengwu's master, by Lianfeng. Its power was very strong, comparable to a saint-level sword art. The saint-level sword arts of this world were limited by the cultivation base. If one's cultivation base was not at the saint level, it would be very difficult to use it. Even if one used it, the body would not be able to withstand the powerful force, and would be injured. It could be said that if one injured the enemy 1,000 times, one would lose 800 times. Normally, unless it was a matter of life and death, no one would use a saint-level sword art to fight when the difference between them and a saint level was too big. What a big deal! Could that be a saint-level sword art? I didn't think that little girl would have such a good thing. If you want it, go save that little girl now. Maybe she will be happy and give you the sword art. Go to hell. The saint-level sword art is not bad, but I still want to live for 2 more years. Most of the people standing on the opposite side of the cliff were swordmasters. The saint-level sword art was very tempting to swordmasters. The top sword arts in the continent were the saint-level sword arts and the god-level sword arts. Although there were not many saint-level sword arts, many big families had one in their collection. As for the god-level sword arts, only the super aristocratic families would have half of it. Now that a little girl might have such a treasure like the saint-level sword art, these swordmasters' hearts were naturally burning. However, when they thought that Fengwu might die in the hands of the two ancient corpses, no matter how hot their thoughts were, they had to give up. Could it be that they could wait for Fengwu to die, and take her interspatial ring? There were two ancient corpses over there eyeing covetously. Although the saint-level sword art was tempting, their lives were more important. It was better to just forget about it. In the blink of an eye, Feng Wu and the two ancient corpses had already exchanged more than 100 moves. The ancient corpses' bodies were very powerful. Feng Wu had the pure sword in her hand, which had the ability to purify. Although it was controlled by Feng Wu and could not absorb the evil aura, it could still purify the evil aura emitted by the ancient corpses. Moreover, the pure sword's body was already surrounded by a pure purifying power. After being hit by the pure sword, the ancient corpses' bodies, which were like iron walls, would also be injured, leaving wounds on their bodies. Xiazhua had been watching from afar. He was worried about Feng Wu and was also surprised by her strength. He always knew that Feng Wu's strength should be very strong, but he didn't think that Feng Wu was actually this powerful. The saint-level sword art and the extraordinary dancing weapon in her hand were too easy to be coveted by others. He turned around and looked at the opposite side of the cliff. Sure enough, a group of sword masters were staring at the sword in Feng Wu's hand with burning eyes. This sword was able to injure the two ancient corpses. With one look, he knew that it was not an ordinary sword. It was very likely to be a saint-level weapon. A saint-level devil sword was a strong temptation to many people. Even some great aristocratic families and super-aristocratic families would definitely be interested and send experts to seize it. Xiazhua was not surprised that the group of people opposite would want that sword. When he saw that the two people who were crossing the cliff had finally reached the opposite side, his eyes lit up. He immediately shouted at Feng Wu. Feng Wu quickly crossed the cliff. "We can go now." Xiazhua had already seen that although Feng Wu's strength was not bad, compared to the two ancient corpses, there was still a gap. If it wasn't for the weapon in her hand, Feng Wu might have been injured or even killed. The current Feng Wu was obviously not the opponent of the two ancient corpses. The only thing she could do now was to find an opportunity to escape. "You go first." Feng Wu bit her lips and said without turning her head. She couldn't leave now. She had to buy more time for Xiazhua, the Feng Wu girl thought. Bao Bao, who had been sitting on Feng Wu's head, was also anxiously looking in Xiazhua's direction. He hoped that this brat would not say something stupid like leaving together. Of course, Xiazhua would not do such a stupid thing. After hearing Feng Wu's words, he immediately ran in the direction of the rope bridge. Then he tried his best to balance his body and move to the opposite side. At the bottom of the cliff, there was a bottomless white fog. It was impossible to see what was below. If one fell, even if they didn't die, they would definitely be crippled. Chapter 376. At the bottom of the cliff, there was a bottomless white fog. There was no way to see what was below. As long as one fell down, even if they didn't die, they would certainly be crippled. Xiazhua resisted the urge to look down and steadily walked forward. He was now very glad. Even though he was crippled in both magic and martial arts, he had always paid attention to the training of his body. His body's balance and stability were not bad. As long as nothing happened along the way, he would certainly be able to reach the opposite cliff. At this time, Feng Wu was still fighting with the two ancient corpses. The attacks of the ancient corpses were all blocked by the pure sword in Feng Wu's hand. Even though their bodies were already scratched by the pure sword, and the wounds were often deep enough to see the bones, the two ancient corpses didn't feel any pain. Those wounds didn't have any effect on them. Moreover, in this environment where there was no evil aura, the two corpses could use the evil aura to heal their wounds at any time. Therefore, the conclusion was that although these wounds looked scary, they didn't have much effect on them. It didn't affect their attack on Feng Wu at all. Even though Feng Wu had the pure sword to protect her body, she was still surrounded by danger because of the pincer attack of the two ancient corpses. Feng Wu's arm was scratched by the nails of the ancient corpses. A bloody wound appeared on Feng Wu's hand. The corpses' bodies were full of evil aura. If one wasn't treated in time after being scratched by them, it was very likely that the evil aura would invade the body and cause death. However, this was not a big problem for Feng Wu. Feng Wu herself was the master of the pure sword. Her body had been nourished by the pure sword for a long time. Any evil aura that invaded her body would immediately be purified. There was no such thing as being eroded by evil aura. Fengwu was injured, and the people on the other side were also worried. To be able to fight with these two powerful ancient corpses for so long, even if Fengwu's weapon was more powerful, it couldn't be denied that her own strength also played a role. For such a young genius, it was better to live if possible. After all, not everyone could tolerate geniuses. There weren't many freaks in the world who would kill geniuses for fun. Seeing that Xiazwo was already halfway there, Fengwu nodded. She turned around and unleashed her ultimate move. Sword chi filled the air, and Fengwu took the opportunity to leap onto the rope bridge. She walked forward quickly. Fengwu's body was light, and she had practiced a light body technique before. When she walked on the rope bridge, she did not sway at all. If Xiazwo hadn't heard the shouts of those people, he wouldn't have known that Fengwu was behind him. Everyone was afraid that the two ancient corpses would chase after Fengwu and the others. If the two ancient corpses chased after them, they could only cut off the rope to save everyone. Fortunately, the two ancient corpses didn't chase after them. The people on the other side of the cliff let out a sigh of relief. Just when everyone was relieved, the rope suddenly broke. Xiazwo didn't expect that Bess would actually plot against them at this time. After a scream, he and Phoenix fell down the cliff and into the white fog. "What are you doing?" The others also didn't expect that someone would suddenly plot against them at this time. Yes, just when Fengwu and Xiazwo were about to cross the cliff, Bess actually made her move. She used ice magic to freeze one end of the rope, so that the rope could no longer bear the weight of the two people. The part of the rope that was frozen by the magic directly shattered into ice shards, and the rope naturally broke. Seeing a group of men glaring at her, Bess's excitement of getting her revenge didn't reduce at all. "I didn't do anything. I'm just doing it for everyone's safety. What if those two monsters come after us?" Bess said, twisting her words. "You've gone too far. Don't think that others can't see that you're taking this opportunity to retaliate against them." Everyone present looked at Bess with unkind eyes. This woman can stab Fengwu in the back. Who knows if she won't plot against them? This kind of despicable person is better off killing. Bess saw that these people wanted to kill her. "You don't have to worry. I will attack those two people because I have a personal grudge against them. That woman and her accomplices killed my father. I killed her to avenge my father. I don't have any enmity with any of you. Don't worry. I promise this will be the first and last time. As long as no one tries to harm me, I promise I won't do anything to you." Everyone looked at each other, and finally figured out why Bess was targeting Fengwu and Phoenix. So there was such a reason behind it. No one suspected that she was lying. Using her own father to lie, no matter how they thought about it, it was unlikely. Because Bess killed people for a reason, these people's killing intent was reduced a lot. Although they wouldn't kill her, they were still wary of her, and didn't dare to believe her easily. After dispelling the murderous intent of these people, Bess felt relieved. She wasn't sure if she could escape from so many people. Moreover, this place was too dangerous for her to act alone. If it wasn't necessary, Bess really didn't want to leave the group. If these people still insisted on killing her, she wouldn't be able to escape and act alone. Fortunately, these people didn't have a strong desire to kill her. The death of Fengwu and Shozo didn't splash any waves. Adventurers face all kinds of dangers every day, and they always have a brush with death. No one has the spare heart to sympathize with the dead strangers. The cold wind blew on the body, as if it was cut by a knife. Mournful cries and screams constantly lingered in the ears, making people feel a burst of despair and coldness. The piles of white bones on the ground piled up into a small hill, and some poisonous creatures crawled around in the white bones. The ground was dyed red with blood, and there was no grass on the ground, only a few poisonous flowers standing in the wind. A white barrier shrouded the land, and no living thing could survive in this place. Shozo felt someone patting his face. He struggled to open his eyes, and a vague figure appeared in front of him. "Fengwu." Shozo called out the name with uncertainty. "You're awake, are you feeling better?" Fengwu wrinkled her cute nose, and a pair of black gem-like eyes showed obvious concern. "Is this the bottom of the cliff?" Shozo looked at the scene around him, which was like purgatory on earth, and suddenly felt a chill on his back. We're still alive. I thought we were going to die this time. When she fell, a strong sense of unwillingness almost drowned her. He was burdened with the life and death of all the humans 100 years in the future. If he died before he could do anything, how could he face those who sent him back to the past with their last hope? Fortunately, he was still alive. As long as he was alive, he would complete his mission and help the Heavenly Wind continent escape destruction. Shozo secretly swore in his heart. Chapter 377. Ah! A burst of shrill screams came. In this gloomy bottom of the cliff, it was like an evil spirit crying. Thank me properly. If it wasn't for me, you would definitely be dead. Baby glanced at him proudly. His little eyes seemed to say, I'm amazing, right? Amazing, right? Amazing, right? Important things must be said 3 times. You saved me. Xiazhua felt a little surprised. He thought that Fengwu used some special means to save him. He didn't expect that the person who saved him was Baby. It's not that Xiazhua looked down on this little guy, but this little guy was so small, he could just put it in his pocket and take it away. Who would believe that such a little guy had the ability to save people? And as far as he knew, the wise beast didn't have any attack power. Except for its own talent. It didn't have any power at all. So he really couldn't associate Baby with the person who saved him. Of course it's me. If you don't believe me, you can ask Fengwu. Baby said angrily. Fengwu heard this and nodded. It was indeed Baby who saved Xiazhua. When the 2 of them fell to the bottom of the cliff, Pure Sword automatically jumped out to protect her, safely sending her to the bottom of the cliff. But Xiazhua wasn't so lucky. It was Baby who used a special enchantment power, as a wise beast to save Xiazhua. You can set up enchantments. Xiazhua was surprised. He had never heard of the wise beast having this ability. What's so strange about this? Although we are weak, it's impossible for us to have no power to protect ourselves. This enchantment power is our means of self-protection. This ability can only be used for self-protection. There is no lethality at all. Their wise beast family was so sad. They didn't have any attack power. If they didn't have a little power to set up enchantments, even ordinary small beasts could bully them. When did your wise beast family have this kind of power? The most important thing was, from Zicheng's friends, he had never heard that the wise beast had this kind of power. What the hell was going on? Xiazhua was a little confused for a while. He couldn't figure out whether Zicheng deliberately concealed it in his previous life, or Zicheng's wise beast didn't have this kind of ability. You know I'm the wise beast. Bao Bao was instantly enraged and immediately retreated into Fengwu's arms. He looked like he was afraid of being kidnapped by bad people. He looked at Xiazhua with vigilance. Xiazhua rubbed his nose awkwardly. He seemed to have accidentally revealed something that he shouldn't have. What should he do now? Even the Fengwu girl looked at him with a puzzled face. Although Fengwu was simple, she was not stupid. She knew that the value of a wise beast was enough to make anyone have evil intentions. Moreover, she had never told anyone about the identity of the Rue beast. So how did Xiazhua find out? Fengwu blinked her big eyes in confusion. 3 words were written in her eyes, asking for an explanation. Well, ahem. Actually, in my family, there are records about the wise beast. Plus, I saw the wise beast's egg a few days ago, so I can probably guess the identity of the baby. Xiazhua had no choice but to lie to Fengwu and the baby with guilt. You can tell that it's a Rue beast's egg? Everyone else thinks it's an ore. How do you know it's me? Unlike the Fengwu girl who was simple and gullible, Bao Bao was a wise beast. Although his IQ was not off the charts, it definitely surpassed most existences. How could such a simple lie be easily believed by Bao Bao? This question was so sharp that he was speechless. At this time, there were more and more mournful screams, rising and falling one after another. Under such a cliff full of bones, it was simply creepy. Let's look around and find a way to eat. Xiazhua stiffly changed the topic, not daring to let Bao Bao ask any more questions. If Bao Bao continued to ask, his disguise as a reborn person would be exposed. His identity could not be exposed now. If he let Irene know, it was because everyone was wearing a disguise and the target was the same. If his identity was exposed, it would be beneficial for everyone's cooperation. He did not have to worry about Irene telling others about his rebirth. because Irene's own identity could not be exposed. And compared to him, a reborn person, Irene was a foreign soul that could not be exposed, so Irene would definitely not talk about it. As for Fengwu, he did not want to say much because he did not want to drag Fengwu into this. There were many things he had to do in the future, and most of them were life-threatening. He did not want Fengwu to be involved in these things. He only wanted her to live happily. Of course, there was also his own selfishness in protecting himself. Bao Bao looked at him deeply. That meaningful gaze made people feel very stifled. There is such strong resentment and evil spirit here. We might have come to an incredible place. Bao Bao looked up and flew to Fengwu's head to continue building his nest. Fengwu nodded, agreeing with Bao Bao's words. This place was both red and black. It was really strange. Fengwu girl finished the identification. Fengwu looked around. The screams came closer to her ears, making Fengwu very puzzled. Who is screaming here? It must be very painful. She remembered that on Mount Yuehua, her good friend De Xiong had screamed like this when he stepped into the hunter's trap. So pitiful. He must be injured like De Xiong, Fengwu thought as she blinked her big eyes. The sound here is really uncomfortable. The screams seemed to come from the pain of the soul. Just listening to them was unbearable. Xiazhua followed behind Fengwu and looked around at the bottom of the cliff. He found that there was no other way out except for poisonous insects, poisonous flowers, and white bones. There was only a pitch-black hole standing there. The screams were obviously coming from this hole. Should we go in? Xiazhua frowned as he looked at the hole. He didn't know whether to go in or not. It was obvious that it was not a good place. It might be a dead end if they went in. Of course, there was also the possibility that they could find a way out and leave this damned place. Do we have a choice? If we don't go in, are you going to retire here with a pile of white bones? Bao Bao rolled his eyes impolitely. Okay, he was the one who said nonsense. Let's go. Her master had said that if there were difficulties, she had to overcome them. If she really couldn't overcome them, she had to work hard to improve her strength, and then overcome them. Fengwu had always listened to her master. At this time, Fengwu didn't feel much fear in her heart. Instead, she was thinking whether her current strength was enough to overcome the dangers inside. She decided that if it was too dangerous, she would bring Xiazhua out. Then she would improve her strength and overcome the danger. Yes, it's decided then. If Xiazhua knew what Fengwu was thinking, he would definitely complain. Xiazhua, have you ever thought about what if we can't get out? Fengwu, no, I haven't. Chapter 378. They walked into the pitch-black cave. Even though it was pitch black from the outside, there was a faint light coming from the inside. There were a few green flames floating in the air. Even though they were able to provide some light, they were more frightening than anything else. A pitch-black cave with ghostly flames floating in the air. It was definitely the standard feature of a horror movie. Shouzo swallowed a mouthful of saliva as he followed closely behind Fengwu. The cry was getting closer and closer. In this cave, the cry seemed to be even clearer. In the cave there was only one passageway. This passageway led to the inside of the cave, and the cry seemed to have come from there. Let's go. Fengwu walked around the green willow, the wisps, and continued forward. Wait! Shouzo quickly pulled Fengwu back and took out a magic tool for illumination from his space ring. The dim cave immediately brightened up with the help of the illumination. A chilly wind blew through the cave from time to time, causing chills to run down his spine. To their surprise, there were no corpses in the cave, only some green flames. The two continued forward. The number of green flames increased. It was enough to make one's scalp numb. Those who were more timid would have fainted on the spot. Fengwu assumed the cries were people who were in the same situation as her friend Big Bear. She kept walking in the direction of the cries. Even though Shouzo and Bao Bao were worried that the cries would bring them danger, she still insisted on going forward. It was as if a voice was telling her how painful the cries were, and that they needed someone to save them. Fengwu believed she could save them, so she went forward without hesitation. There was only one path in the cave. They kept walking forward, and finally reached the end of the path. At the end of the path was a 2-meter-tall stone door. The cries were coming from behind the stone door. The closer they got to the door, the clearer the pain from their souls became. Shouzo was only a piece of trash. The cries of pain made his heart ache. He felt like his head was about to explode. When Fengwu saw that even his eyes were bloodshot, she immediately sealed his 5 senses with her Daodu, causing him to fall into a deep sleep. After finding a place to put Xiaozhua down, Fengwu went to the door alone. She knew that the person she was looking for was behind the door. She slowly reached out her hand and wanted to push the door open. Bao Bao knew that he could not stop Fengwu. He had already decided to go all out. If there was any danger, he would just run away. Bao Bao could only comfort himself in this way. The door was pushed open, and the scene inside was clearly imprinted in Fengwu's eyes. Inside the gate, thousands of souls were chained to the shoulder armor. These flexible souls were constantly being burned by a white evil flame. These flames brought them endless pain, but did not cause any harm to their spiritual bodies. Thousands of souls were constantly being burned by the flames. That kind of pain could not be described with words. Many of them had been turned into vengeful spirits, with only hatred in their hearts, due to the great resentment. Only a small number of them still maintained human rationality. Perhaps to them, maintaining human rationality was a kind of pain. The cries that Fengwu and the rest heard were from these souls. Because of the endless pain they endured every day, the souls were screaming in pain. Could this place be the place where evil spirits are created? This is great. We can solve this problem once and for all. Bao Bao did not think that they would be so lucky. They could meet these pitiful souls who were imprisoned here to create evil spirits. There are actually living people who can come here. Little girl, you are so lucky to be able to come here alive. At this time, a voice entered Fengwu's ears. Fengwu looked in the direction of the voice. The person who spoke was a man in luxurious clothes. The man's clothes were very luxurious. They were even more luxurious than the man and woman outside. On his head was a crown that looked like imperial power. He was different from the surrounding souls who had lost their rationality because of the evil spirits and resentment. Although this man's soul also had evil spirits and resentment, it still allowed him to retain his own consciousness. You are the owner of this tomb? Bao Bao looked at the man for 3 seconds and said with certainty, even my wise beast is here. I did not expect to see the wise beast after I died. The man looked at Bao Bao with surprise. Have you seen other wise beasts? Bao Bao asked curiously. Yes, I have seen a wise beast. It has a strong healing ability. It can heal any injury. It is a very kind little guy. It has helped Ole a lot. As the man spoke, he was being burned by the strange flames, but he did not make a sound. Even Bao Bao was impressed by his perseverance. He must be so tough that he could even endure the damage to his soul. Other than this guy, Bao Bao had never seen another human being. Don't tell me you're talking about my aunt. The wise beasts had always been few in number. Ever since the wise beast's ordinary nature was exposed, many humans began to have ideas about the wise beasts, wanting to contract their people. In order to protect their people, the wise beasts all hid in the depths of the spiritual world. Few magical beasts could find them. Your aunt is Millie? The human king was also very surprised. He did not expect to see the descendant of his friend. It really is my auntie. I didn't expect the friend that my auntie couldn't forget to be you. Even when my auntie died, she still missed you. Speaking of his auntie, Bao Bao was a little sad. Bao Bao's Aunt Millie was a very kind wise beast. Among all the wise beasts, she was not the smartest, but she was definitely the kindest. If she was not kind, how could she die in the hands of the Shura clan to save a group of weak humans? When Bao Bao's aunt died, she was still very young according to the age of the wise beasts. She had just reached adulthood. Everyone in the clan felt sorry for her aunt's death. It was probably because her aunt's death was not worth it. They, the wise beasts, were smarter than others, so they often saw things very clearly. In that case, it was obvious that she would die if she stayed. She could go back to the spiritual world, but she chose to die with those humans. Even the smart wise beast still could not understand her aunt's way of doing things. Is Muriel dead? I can't believe that even she is dead. I told that fool to go back to the spiritual world, but he didn't listen. Hearing that his friend had died, a touch of sadness flashed through the eyes of the young king. Chapter 379. This emperor. who was still very young when he died, must have had a very deep relationship with the baby's aunt. The sadness in his eyes did not seem to be fake. From his eyes, one could see the sadness in his heart. That's what my aunt would do. The elders don't understand. We the wise beasts are very smart. Why did we give birth to someone as stupid as Aunt Millie? Fengwu quietly listened to the spirit and beast talk. From their conversation, Fengwu didn't know who Millie was, but she didn't ask. She contacted Xiaochun in her mind and asked him to think of a way to save these poor souls. Xiaochun of course agreed. If he could eat as much as he wanted, it would be strange if he didn't agree. But the fire was a problem. Xiaochun thought for a moment, and then contacted his friend Pure Flame. Pure Flame, the purest fire in the world, ranked number 1 on the Heavenly Flame list. Ever since Pure Flame met Pure Sword on Mount Yuehua, Pure Flame had been living in Pure Sword's pure spirit space. It could be said that Pure Flame had contributed greatly to the successful activation of Pure Sword's intelligence. This was the first time Xiaochun had asked Pure Flame for help. Pure Flame was a very lazy guy. If it had nothing to do, it would hide in its space and sleep. But this time, in order to help Fengwu, Xiaochun had to ask his friend to come out. Pure Flame was number 1 on the Heavenly Fire list. It had the power to consume all fire. If it wanted to, it could consume any fire. It was just that Pure Flame was too lazy. Normally, it was too lazy to even move, let alone find other heavenly flames to devour, which required a lot of effort. Because of its friend's request, Pure Flame agreed to help. Pure Sword's body trembled. A human-shaped white flame appeared in front of Fengwu. When Fengwu saw Pure Flame appear, she looked at it curiously for a while. Although Pure Flame lived in her Dantian, she had never communicated with Pure Flame before. There was no contract between them. Fengwu could only communicate with Pure Flame through Xiaochun. The appearance of the Pure Flames clearly attracted the attention of the White Flames. After 10,000 years, the White Flames had already developed a faint consciousness. They were all flames collected by the sea god. So naturally, they were not ordinary flames. At the very least, they were flames that were ranked on the Heavenly Flame ranking. However, when faced with the flame that suddenly appeared in the shape of a small white person, they actually felt a deep sense of fear. They also felt that they would be destroyed by this little white flame at any time. They wanted to escape, but in front of the flame, they, who were originally very aggressive, did not even have the strength to resist. Even the flame became much wilted. They couldn't escape, and could only watch as the white humanoid flame floated in front of them in an instant, and then swallowed them whole in one gulp. Although they looked like flames, they were actually all split from the same flame. Pure Flame saw through this with a single glance. It ate and drank as much as it could in the midst of the thousands of flames. Its main body, which was hiding among the flames, wanted to use the flames to help it escape, but Pure Flame would not give it such a chance. Just as it was looking for a chance to escape, Pure Flame actually appeared in front of it, and then with a big gulp, it devoured its body. Without the power of the main body, the split-off flame quickly lost its light and was extinguished. How is this possible? This was the first time this human king had lost control. His face was full of disbelief, and it showed just how shocked he was. These flames had been burning for tens of thousands of years. They had endured hellish torment every day. They couldn't even destroy themselves. The only thing they could do was try their best to maintain their own intelligence and prevent the baleful aura and resentment from turning them into an evil spirit. If someone had told him before that these flames would be swallowed by another flame, he would not have believed it. But today, he saw a scene that he would never have dared to imagine. This feeling was simply too unreal. If he could still move and still had a physical body, he would definitely pinch himself hard to see if he was dreaming. After Pure Flame dealt with the flames, it immediately flew back into Xiaochun's sword spirit space to slowly digest its food. At this time Xiaochun appeared. It brought with it a pressure that made people tremble and surrounded the anger, purifying all the bad energy. Then he also destroyed the chains on these spirits. Purifying these two types of evil aura was extremely painful for the spirit bodies. Miserable screams rang out one after another in the cave. These spirit bodies let out despairing howls and wails. It was only a few minutes later that the evil aura was completely purified. Are we saved? Are we finally saved? We're finally free. Woo woo, we're finally free. Ah! LZ is finally free. Voices of joy sounded. These pitiful spirits had been tortured for so long. They never thought that they would one day regain their freedom. Everything that happened at this moment was like a dream. It made people worry that they would be locked in that place again in the next second, and let those terrifying flames burn their souls. Thank you, little girl. Thank you for saving my people. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. This human emperor who had never cried out or shed a single tear no matter how much he was hurt, shed a tear at this moment. He did not become an emperor for many years. In the beginning, he looked down on everyone. He felt that he was a high and mighty emperor, different from the ordinary people. As he grew, he understood his responsibilities and understood what it was to be an emperor. But he did not have the chance to do much, because not long after, he was affected by the power of the war between the gods and demons and died. His people Lin built a tomb for him and buried all the people who had died with him. Even if they died, they had to follow him, the emperor. However, they didn't expect that the sea god would be severely injured in the great war of gods and demons. In order to create a tomb that no one could steal, he moved his tomb to this place. From then on, whether it was him or his people, they lived in hell forever until today. No need to thank me. It doesn't hurt anymore, right? Fengwu blinked and asked seriously. The human emperor's heart warmed. This girl was indeed the one who was loved by the wise beast. She was really a kind and pure person. It doesn't hurt anymore. He smiled gently. Your Highness. Greetings, Your Highness. Your Highness. Are you all right? I deserve to die. I couldn't protect Your Highness and let Your Highness suffer so much. 1,000 spirit bodies knelt down in front of the former monarch, creating a huge commotion. Chapter 380. 1,000 spirits knelt down in front of the former emperor. It was a grand scene. The emperor's spirit sighed. His eyes flashed with relief and guilt. If it wasn't for him, these loyal soldiers and servants wouldn't have to suffer such hellish pain. His heart ached when he thought about the pain these loyal people had to suffer. Rise, it's my fault for implicating you all. The emperor's spirit said with sorrow. No, how can we blame Your Highness for all of this? We can only blame that despicable sea god. A general in armor stepped forward and said loudly. Everyone had just stood up when they heard Their Highness blaming himself. Their noses turned sour and their eyes turned red. Let's not talk about this anymore. Quickly come and thank our benefactor. If it wasn't for this young lady saving us, I'm afraid we would never have a day of success. The emperor's spirit looked at Fengwu and said gratefully, Thank you, benefactor. So it was benefactor who saved us. Thank you so much. Benefactor's great kindness. If there is an afterlife, we will definitely repay you. Thank you, benefactor. Thank you, benefactor. Many spirits thanked Fengwu one after another. Fengwu blinked her eyes and tilted her head. She looked adorably at these pitiful spirits who were thanking her wholeheartedly. Stop, stop, stop. You're all talking at once. It's so noisy. Can you not talk together? It's too noisy. Bao Bao couldn't stand it and shouted. Many spirits heard that and stopped talking. This was obviously their benefactor's pet. They had received her kindness and naturally had to give her face. Do you all want to leave? Fengwu saw that everyone had quietened down and asked. Many spirits looked at the emperor's spirit. Whether they wanted to leave or not, it was up to Their Highness. Of course we have to leave. This place has too many painful memories for everyone. It's not a place to stay for long. Even though this former emperor had been tortured for 10,000 years, his emperor's temperament had not been erased. His every movement carried the noble aura that belonged only to an emperor, making people feel a sense of submission at first sight. You guys are going to reincarnate? Fengwu asked curiously. She thought of the spirit bodies she had encountered in the past. Most of them had already reincarnated into humans. Only a small number of them could not be saved, or had problems with their bodies. They ended up being annihilated. Maybe. We've already stayed in the human world for too long. The cycle of life and death is a natural law. No one can escape from it unless they reach the divine level. He said. If you want to reincarnate, you'd better wait. Your souls have been tortured for 10,000 years, and your soul power has been weakened by a lot. If you don't take good care of her, she will be weak and sickly even if she is reincarnated. If it's serious, she will have to be reincarnated not long after she is born. Bao Bao sat on Fengwu's head with an expression that said, "You have to believe me." The emperor's spirit nodded and did not doubt Bao Bao's words. He also knew that although he looked fine now, the 10,000 years of torture had already weakened his spirit body. If he did not recuperate well, there would indeed be problems. "Oh yes. I just want to ask about Poseidon. Is he really dead?" A general grabbed his head and stepped forward, asking Fengwu nervously. "He has been dead for a long time." Fengwu thought for a while and said, "So Poseidon is really dead? It's good that he's dead. If he didn't die, LZ would definitely kill a god." "I think so too. I didn't expect the sea god to die so early. If he's still alive, I'll definitely perish together with that evil sea god, even if I have to risk my life." "That's right, that's too easy for him. His mind is vicious, and his methods are as evil as the devil. How can such a person be worshipped by 10,000 people? How can he be worthy of being a god? If all gods are like this, I won't worship any gods in the future." Because of the news of the sea god's death, these burly soldiers began to criticize the sea god's crimes like an old lady in a wet market. If the sea god wasn't dead, these fellows would probably rush up and fight it out with the sea god. "Everyone quiet down." The emperor's spirit spoke. Reality proved that this emperor had a high position in the hearts of these soldiers and attendants. When he spoke, even if his voice was not loud, it still made them shut up. "Benefactor, for you to be able to come here, is it because the Poseidon's tomb has been opened by someone?" Although it was a question, it was not hard to hear from his voice that he had already confirmed this matter. "That's right," Fengwu said. "Can you tell us about the opening of the Poseidon's tomb?" The emperor's spirit said with a smile. It had to be said that this emperor's spirit was very handsome. Although he was not as beautiful as Ming Shi, who was as beautiful as the moon goddess, this emperor's spirit had his own unique temperament and a naturally handsome face. Fengwu nodded, then opened her small mouth, and began to talk about how they entered the Poseidon's tomb. From walking through the endless corridor to crossing the sea to entering the tomb, she did not hide anything from the emperor's spirit. "Benefactor, I don't know if I can ask you for a favor?" The emperor's spirit suddenly said with a serious face. "You want Xiao Wu to help you save the other emperors? You think too highly of Xiao Wu. It was pure luck that she was able to save you. As for the other emperors' tombs, it is not that easy to enter." Bao Bao was not happy. He felt that this emperor, who had a bit of contact with his elders, was forcing him to do something. "I also know that it is a bit difficult for Benefactor to do this, but I can't bear to see the other emperors suffer in the hands of the Poseidon. For Benefactor's safety, I will not let Benefactor go save them directly. I only hope that Benefactor can take me with you and leave this place. Then, when we go to the next tomb, you can save them like you saved us. During this period of time, we will protect Benefactor's safety together. If you encounter any fatal danger, we will risk our souls to save Benefactor's life, so that Benefactor can escape successfully," the emperor's spirit pleaded. The emperor's spirit pleaded with his eyes. He had no other choice. How could he feel at ease if he had to watch the emperor of the human race stay here forever, and suffer the pain of his soul for the sake of the sea god's selfishness? "Are you sure you will protect Xiao Wu's safety?" Bao Bao asked for confirmation. "Yes, even if we die, we will not let Benefactor get hurt." This was the emperor's spirit's promise. The soldiers and maids who had been standing obediently to the side did not have any other thoughts. They did not think that there was anything wrong with the emperor's spirit making this decision without asking for their permission. In their hearts, any decision their king made was right. They were very happy to save the other emperors, to be able to destroy the Poseidon's scheme, and let the younger generation of the human race rob the Poseidon's tomb, was a good punishment for the selfish Poseidon. Chapter 381. Bao Bao was quite moved by the king's spirit's promise to protect Fengwu. "Xiao Wu, are you going to save the other spirits? If you want to go, you can bring these fellows along." These fellows were extremely strong before they died. They're the best fighters. The king's spirit smiled bitterly. He was the king of the human world, but in the eyes of this little Rue beast, he had become a fighter. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Save them. Fengwu thought for 3 seconds before making a decision. Was this considered chivalrous? In the past, she had heard from her master that martial artists like them needed to get rid of the strong and help the weak when necessary. She was now doing what her master said. When she went back, she must tell her master and let her master praise her for her ability. Unfortunately, Fengwu didn't know that her master had taught her the ways to survive in the martial arts world. If you don't go out and do some chivalrous deeds, who would know what kind of person you are? Aren't you embarrassed to call yourself a hero or a heroine? Aren't you embarrassed to stay in the martial arts world? Fengwu's original world was also a world where martial arts flourished. There were quite a few experts who entered the martial arts world through martial arts. To stand out in that world, reputation and strength were very important. As a newbie who just entered the martial arts world, the fastest way to become famous was to do chivalrous deeds. Today, they saved a girl who was being molested by a playboy. Tomorrow, they would go and challenge a notorious bandit's lair. This was the way these chivalrous heroes became famous. Bai Lianfeng had originally planned to let Fengwu play in the martial arts world and improve her strength through actual combat. Unfortunately, before he could do anything, his beloved disciple Tianlan had already transmigrated into the Fengwu girl. In the Heavenly Wind continent, using Fengwu's previous world to do chivalrous deeds would definitely not work. However, the Fengwu girl didn't know this. In this world, if you wanted to ask someone to do something, it wasn't as simple as kneeling down and begging for help. If you wanted to ask someone to help, it was fine. Go to the big guilds and put up a mission. If the price was right, a bunch of people would rush to help you. If you don't have money and want to ask for help, you can only try your luck. If you are lucky, you might meet a fool who treats money like dirt. The reason why this girl didn't run over to help the weak was because she didn't think of it. Secondly, she didn't encounter such an opportunity. This girl had completely forgotten why she came to save people. It was only because the other person's pitiful cry reminded her of her friend De Xiong from before she transmigrated. Now, a request from the spirit of the emperor made Fengwu remember something that she seemed to have forgotten for a long time. She was going to start being chivalrous. When she went back and told her master about this, her master would definitely praise her. Bai Lianfeng, disciple, this world doesn't even know what chivalry is. You can do good deeds, but remember to receive benefits. Fengwu girl. Wait, it's okay to save people, but don't you know that there's a price to pay for asking someone to help? Bao Bao wasn't a simple-minded girl like the Fengwu girl. What it was thinking now was that since it was already on the Fengwu girl's boat, it had to do its best to help the Fengwu girl obtain benefits. These were ancient humans who had been dead for tens of thousands of years. In ancient times, treasures were everywhere. They must have something good on them. Of course, we won't let our benefactor work for nothing. When the spirit of the emperor heard Bao Bao's request, it didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. It was normal to ask someone to help pay a price. It's just that we don't have anything good on us right now. Fortunately, there are 1 or 2 things in my tomb that might be useful to our benefactor. We can go and get them for our benefactor. There really are good things. Bao Bao's miserly nature acted up, and it nodded in satisfaction. After deciding to help, the most important thing now was to leave this place. Leaving this place might have been difficult for the Fengwu in the past, but with the help of the tomb's owner, this difficulty was nothing. Fengwu led the spirits out of the stone room that was used to imprison the spirits. Not long after they left, Fengwu kicked a human-shaped object. Fengwu's big eyes were filled with confusion. No wonder she felt like she had forgotten something. It was Xiazhua. Xiazhua opened his eyes and found that he was back in the pile of bones at the bottom of the cliff. Fengwu? Xiazhua clearly remembered that he had entered the cave with Fengwu. How did he appear in this place? Could it be that he was dreaming just now? Did he not enter the cave in the first place? Xiazhua was very suspicious, but he wasn't sure. You're awake. We can leave now. Fengwu pursed her lips and said. As she spoke, She timidly peeked at Xiazhua. She had left Xiazhua alone outside. Would Xiazhua be angry? Fengwu girl fidgeted with her fingers and thought worriedly. Xiazhua, on the other hand, didn't think much of it. He was preoccupied with Fengwu's words. Leave this place. He wasn't dreaming, right? He felt like he had only slept for a while. Why did it feel like a long time had passed? He even found a way out. He didn't seem to have done anything other than sleeping. Thinking of this, he felt that he was quite useless. He scratched his head embarrassedly. Where do we go from here? Suppressing his emotions, Xiazhua tried to focus his attention on the way out. This place was filled with bones. Other than poisonous flowers, poisonous insects, and waves of miserable screams, there was nothing else. If there was a way, who would want to stay in this gloomy place? This gigolo is really useless. Xiao Wu, you should just dump him. Before Xiazhua woke up, these spirits had already chatted with Fengwu for a long time. One by one, they called her Xiao Wu instead of their benefactor. That's right, Xiao Wu. When you find a man, you should find a stronger one. Look at him. He looks like a bear that can be blown away by a phoenix. That's right, Xiao Wu. This brat's combat strength is trash. He's really not worthy of you. Not far from Fengwu, a large group of spirits pointed at Xiazhua. Their eyes were full of disdain for him. Completely unaware that he was being watched inhumanely, Xiazhua suddenly felt a little cold. He pulled his clothes and rubbed his hands. This place was indeed full of yin energy. It was better to leave quickly. Close your eyes, Fengwu said. Close my eyes? Although he was puzzled, he obediently closed his eyes because Fengwu girl wouldn't harm him. No matter what you feel later, don't open your eyes. Fengwu reminded him worriedly. Okay, I promise I won't open them. Xiazhua nodded and made a promise. Because Bao Bao said that Xiazhua couldn't see these spirits. He would definitely be frightened if he suddenly found out that he was surrounded by more than 1,000 spirits. In order not to scare him, Fengwu didn't say anything. In Fengwu girl's heart, Xiazhua was indeed a weak boy. It wouldn't be good if he was frightened. Xiazhua. Chapter 382. The wind blew into his ears, and his cheeks hurt from the cold wind. Xiazhua felt that he was flying, and he was flying higher and higher. It was as if his body was being pulled up by something, and he kept going up. Xiazhua actually wanted to open his eyes to see what was going on. But because of his agreement with Fengwu, even if he was curious, he didn't open his eyes. Everyone had their own secrets. Fengwu didn't let him open his eyes, so the way they left must be related to her secret. Xiazhua wasn't a person who liked to get to the bottom of things, and he wouldn't pry into other people's secrets. Because of Xiazhua's tactful attitude, the spirits who sent him to the top of the cliff had a better impression of him. They originally thought that he was a useless gigolo, but now it seemed that he wasn't that useless. At least he had a good character. After an unknown amount of time, it could have been a few minutes or a few hours, he finally stood on the ground again. You can open your eyes now. Fengwu's soft voice sounded. Her voice was as soft as cotton candy, and even if she was expressionless all day, it didn't affect her cuteness. However, Xiazhua wasn't in the mood to appreciate how cute the Fengwu girl was. As soon as he touched the ground, he immediately felt dizzy and lightheaded. Are you okay? Fengwu was also sent up by the spirits. The spirits used their spiritual energy to block all the cold wind for Fengwu. So Fengwu didn't feel any discomfort along the way. Xiazhua, on the other hand, didn't have such good treatment. The spirits listened to Fengwu and sent him to the top of the cliff, but they didn't block the cold wind for him. Xiazhua, who didn't have much strength, suffered a little. Xiazhua coughed twice and shook his head to show that he was fine, and that Fengwu didn't have to worry. They were now on the opposite side of the cliff, and Bess and the others had disappeared. They should have continued to move forward. After Xiazhua caught his breath, he took the initiative to continue exploring. Because of him, Fengwu had been implicated a lot, so they had to find a way out quickly. The two of them led the 1,000 souls and walked through the spacious tomb. I didn't think that I would be able to walk around in my tomb in this lifetime. The spirit of the king sighed, lamenting the vicissitudes of time. This is my first time here. So this is what His Highness's tomb looks like. There's dust everywhere. Let's clean it up quickly. The little maids who served the emperor were as diligent as bees, using their own spiritual power to clean up the tomb. These little maids were originally responsible for taking care of the emperor's daily needs, so they were good at cleaning. How could these little maids, who took pride in taking care of the emperor, tolerate the thick layer of dust that covered His Highness' resting place after his death? The soul of the young girl, who was leading the cleaning, was the owner of the corpse of the young girl, who had turned into a zombie. This girl had the highest status among the maids, and her clothes were also prettier than theirs. In front of the former emperor, she was obviously someone with some status. Xiazhua wondered if he had opened his eyes in the wrong way. Why did he feel that the entire tomb had suddenly become clean? The thick layer of dust that could have left footprints on the ground had magically disappeared. Could it be that this tomb had an automatic cleaning function? Unlike Xiazhua, Fengwu could see these souls. She watched them busily cleaning up the tomb. Each and every one of them was extremely diligent in their work. They were afraid that the tomb was not clean enough and would make their emperor uncomfortable. Bao Bao was speechless at this scene. You guys are going to reincarnate. Even if this place is built into a palace, you won't be able to live here for long. Fengwu, it's so clean. The tomb has been cleaned. Walking on this tomb, one could almost smell the bursts of fragrance. Which master made this tomb? When we get out, we must find that master's disciple and build him a house with a self-cleaning function like this. It's decided then. Walking on the clean path of the tomb, they felt like time was passing faster. Why did they have this feeling? In fact, it was because they had walked out of the tomb path. Outside the tomb path was an exquisite and beautiful little garden. Colorful butterflies were dancing in the little garden. At the top of the garden, there was a shining pearl. The reason why so many beautiful plants could grow here and attract butterflies was because there was such a pearl that acted as the sun here. In addition to flowers, there were many medicinal herbs that were already extinct in this era. Every item here could make people go crazy if they were to take it out. However, putting aside whether the people outside were crazy or not, the people inside had already started to go crazy. XX, get out of here right now. I found this herb field first. Get out of here. XX, you saw it first, so it's yours? Are you going to die? Let go of me. Hand over this 10,000-year-old herb. Otherwise you can rest and leave this tomb alive. Bah. I'd rather throw it in the toilet than give it to you. You bitch. If I had known earlier, I would have killed you. I knew that a bitch like you who knows how to scheme can't be a good person. Humph. You're just a loser who thinks you're so great. Didn't you snatch the spirit fruit from someone else? What right do you have to talk about me? I snatched it fair and square. Unlike a bitch like you who only knows how to use underhanded tricks. These people who were fighting with people over a 10,000-year-old herb in the garden were Bess and the others. After Fengwu and the others fell, although the others felt that Bess was vicious and didn't want to be associated with her. After Bess explained that she was avenging her father's death, they didn't say much. If it was for no reason, they could find a reason to get rid of her. But this was obviously a revenge killing. These people couldn't care less. Besides, Bess was a little unreasonable and vicious to Fengwu and the others, but she didn't do anything bad to other people. These people accepted it and still explored the tomb with Bess. They didn't kill her or drive her away. It wasn't until the herb field appeared in front of these people that the temporary friendly tomb exploration came to an end. When there was danger and no valuable items, everyone could still move forward together in such a friendly manner. But once there was a conflict of interest, the originally temporary cooperation was immediately broken. In order to snatch a 10,000-year-old herb, in order to snatch a spiritual fruit that could only be found in books, these people fought fiercely. Some of them were even beaten to death. Chapter 383. Shozo didn't expect to meet these guys again so early. Fengwu raised her eyebrows and looked at Bess. Suddenly she leaped forward. Everyone only saw a shadow moving toward Bess. By the time Bess realized something was wrong, it was already too late. Her chest had been pierced by Fengwu's sword. She didn't even have time to feel the pain before her chest was pierced. His master had said, "Don't give those who want to kill you any chance. Once the other party wants to kill you, you can't be merciful. Otherwise, Being merciful will only bring you endless trouble. Fengwu had always been an obedient girl. Bess wanted to kill her, and almost caused Shouzo to lose his life. The Fengwu girl was angry. She decided to listen to her master's teachings and get rid of this bad person who wanted to kill her. Fengwu had always felt that this bad guy didn't like her and hated her very much. She had felt the bad guy's killing intent more than once. Coupled with the fact that she had been plotted against at the cliff, Fengwu had made up her mind to kill this bad guy and not give him another chance to do it again. Fengwu's sudden attack stunned Shouzo. Those who thought Fengwu had died at the bottom of the cliff were also stunned. How could she still be alive after falling from such a high place? She must be kidding. The fighting stopped, and the shouting stopped. Everyone was looking at the girl who suddenly appeared. The girl who everyone thought had died at the bottom of the cliff. You're not dead. Bess, who was wounded by the sword in her chest, widened her eyes in disbelief. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. There was also a sword in her chest. It was a small sword. The small sword pierced through her chest and went straight through her back. Probably because she was too surprised to see Fengwu still alive, Bess didn't even feel a trace of pain. She only knew that her physical strength was constantly draining away. If she didn't get treatment, she was likely to die. Bad guy. Fengwu pulled out her dagger. Bess couldn't bear the intense pain and fell to the ground. No. Impossible. You can't still be alive. You can't still be alive. Impossible. After saying the last 3 impossibilities, Bess finally died with her eyes wide open and stopped breathing. The 2 of you actually survived. We all thought that you had already died at the bottom of the cliff. None of these people felt sad for Bess's death. They were all strangers. And it was only by chance that they came across each other when exploring the tomb together. They were not acquaintances. So who would have the time to care about the life and death of a stranger? Moreover, she was the one who had plotted against them first. Now that the 2 of them had survived, it was normal for them to kill her with a single sword strike. This was how the world worked. If you were strong, you would kill others. If you were weak, others would kill you. We were lucky that there was a pool at the bottom of the cliff. That's how we survived. Before Fengwu could say anything, Xiazhua took the initiative to answer their questions. Seeing that someone had come forward to answer, these curious people no longer surrounded Fengwu. Instead, they surrounded Xiazhua and asked him all kinds of questions. As soon as these people surrounded him, they asked a lot of questions. Xiazhua tried his best to answer the questions that he could. As for the questions that he couldn't say, he either glossed over it or made up a lie to cover it up. After half an hour, the enthusiasm of these people finally subsided a little. At the same time, they remembered that they were doing something important. Then, some of them went back to digging herbs, some of them picked spirit fruits, and everyone was busy with their own things. Some of them continued the quarreling and fighting that had been interrupted just now. The scene became chaotic again. Xiazhua shook his head. He felt that these people were all stupid. Fengwu, do you see anything here that you are interested in? The herbs here are quite valuable. Pick a few of them. Even if you can't use them, you can still sell them for a lot of money. The herbs in this garden were precious, but they were not attractive to Xiazhua. He was born in a super family, so he had seen all kinds of good things since he was young. Although he was not interested, he still stealthily touched a few stalks of herbs that were of good age, and put them into his spatial ring. There were so many of them, so why did they have to fight over one stalk? Couldn't these people take advantage of the quarrel to pick more? Once again, he looked down on these people's intelligence. They are very valuable. Fengwu's black eyes lit up. To the Fengwu girl, money was equivalent to food. With money, there would be a lot of food. Thinking of those fragrant meat buns, chicken drumsticks and barbecued meat, Fengwu narrowed her eyes and joined the army of herbs digging. When Xiazhua saw that Fengwu had gone to work, he didn't stay idle either. He immediately continued digging hard. On the other hand, the spirit bodies behind Fengwu couldn't understand this scene. Why are they so happy to see these herbs? Even herbs that are 10,000 years old wouldn't be so attractive. In ancient times, it could be said that it was the golden age of potioneers. In that era, herbs of all ages grew on the ground, probably because of the rich magical elements. Those herbs would always grow quickly. No matter how precious something was, no one would care if there were too many of them. Therefore, these spirit bodies couldn't understand why these people were so excited. Herbs went through a cycle of 10,000 years. 10,000 years was the limit of these herbs' lifespan. If they were not dug out after 10,000 years, they would slowly rot and melt back into the soil. When they grew out again, they would go through another 10,000 years of cycle. This was the law of the growth of herbs. Therefore, very few herbs could live for more than 10,000 years. Those that could live for more than 10,000 years were extremely precious and special species. The group of spirits were confused as they watched these human beings picking flowers in their emperor's garden. They were all fighting over something that was not worth anything in their eyes. They were making a ruckus and making a ruckus. These spirits thought that their way of waking up must be wrong. Otherwise, why would they see such a scene that they couldn't understand? After 2 hours of fighting, all the good things in the garden were taken away. Not even a blade of grass was left for the owner of the emperor's tomb. The spirit bodies were very angry. It was fine that their benefactor took away these things. But what the hell were these people doing? What right did they have to take away the flowers and fruits in their emperor's garden? Yes, in the eyes of these people, the valuable herbs and fruits were just ornamental herbs and fruits in the eyes of these spirit bodies. After all, these things weren't very precious in ancient times. The spirit bodies were angry that their emperor's garden was destroyed. They wanted to teach these humans a lesson. Fortunately, the emperor's spirit was very open-minded and stopped these people. In any case, they were already dead. These things were useless to the spirit bodies. These people could take them if they wanted. It was just some flowers, and the emperor's spirit didn't care. All the spirit bodies looked at their emperor with admiration. The emperor was really magnanimous. He could even forgive such rude humans. Woo! Our emperor is too magnanimous. Chapter 384. After dividing up the pile of valuable herbs and spirit fruits, Feng Wu and the others continued to move forward. How strange! Don't you guys feel that this place seems to have become cleaner? A guy who wasn't very tall suddenly said. As he spoke, he looked around suspiciously, trying to see if it was just his imagination. When they entered the tomb, there was clearly dust everywhere, and there were a lot of cobwebs in some places. Why was it that the further they went, the cleaner it became? Now that you mention it, I have the same feeling too. As he spoke, he reached out and touched the wall beside him. When he opened his hand, it was really clean, and there wasn't even a speck of dust. It's so clean! The people who saw this scene were shocked. Then, they curiously reached out and touched the ground. It was really clean, and there wasn't even a speck of dust. Was this really a tomb that no one had entered for 10,000 years? It had to be a joke. No, there's definitely something wrong with this place. It's dangerous. Everyone be careful. This was a very cautious person. That makes sense. Something is indeed wrong. Everyone, be careful of your surroundings. Someone nodded seriously in agreement. Seeing the spirit bodies of the maids diligently cleaning the tomb, Feng Wu directly fell silent. She bit her lips and didn't say anything. The spirit bodies rolled their eyes, especially the little maids who were in charge of cleaning. After fiercely glaring at these guys, they said, "You're thinking too much." Then, they continued to work hard in the tomb, cleaning the path in front of them until it was spotless. These people were shocked by this unbelievably clean tomb. They walked carefully for the next part of the path, afraid that some unknown danger would suddenly appear. After walking for more than 10 minutes, nothing happened. However, they didn't dare to relax, afraid that they would immediately lose their lives if they relaxed. 20 minutes later, they finally saw a stone room, but the stone room's door couldn't be opened. This is the dragon-breaking stone. Once it's put down, it can't be opened. Could this tomb contain the body of the sea god? Someone whimsically said in surprise. That's impossible. It's not that easy to find the main tomb. The person who spoke said cautiously. I don't think that's possible either. Think about it. Apart from the 2 ancient corpses and the lucky cliff, we didn't encounter any other obstacles. How could the dignified sea god's tomb reach the main tomb so easily? This person's analysis was very calm, but everyone had to admit that what she said was very reasonable. No matter how they thought about it, it was too easy. There's one more thing that I don't know if you've noticed. There were so many people who entered the sea god's tomb. But why were we the only ones who were teleported to this place? Where did everyone else go? This time, the one who spoke was a female magician. This woman's appearance was not bad. But she usually did not speak much, so her presence was not strong among these people. She hadn't taken the initiative to speak more than 3 times, giving everyone the impression that she was a very quiet beauty. Although this woman didn't have many opportunities to take the initiative to speak, she always went straight to the point and had a keen insight. In fact, this woman wasn't the only one who noticed this. It was just that everyone was anxious to obtain the treasures in the sea god's tomb. So why would they think so much? They couldn't wait for fewer people to come. That way, their chances of obtaining good things would be greatly increased. I also feel that it's quite strange. We've been here for so long. But why haven't we met anyone else? Could it be that we're not in the same place? These words were what most people were guessing. Originally, everyone thought that they were all in the same place, but in different places. If they continued forward, they might be able to meet someone else. However, from the first stage to the second stage, they had not met anyone else. That's very likely. I suspect that we're not in the real sea god's tomb. It's very likely that this is just a trial space. The sea god probably wants us to pass the trial he left behind. Only those who pass will receive his inheritance, and those who fail will die in there. There should be a few other trial spaces like this. All of us are trapped in one of these spaces. Unless we can pass all the trials, it won't be easy for us to leave. Xiazhua looked at this woman with a little surprise. He had to admit that she was very smart. She clearly didn't know anything about the sea god's tomb, but she was still able to figure out that something was wrong and come up with such a deduction. Although her deductions were all wrong, in a situation where she didn't know anything, she was still able to figure out that there wasn't only one such space, but many. Furthermore, this place wasn't the real sea god's tomb. Hearing this woman's deduction, aside from Fengwu and Xiazhua, everyone else looked at each other. Most people felt that this was the truth of the matter. There were also some people who stubbornly refused to believe it. They firmly believed that this was the main tomb of the sea god's tomb. As for the others who hadn't come, it was most likely that they were unlucky and had died in the corridor. These people were a bunch of brainless people who liked to take advantage of others. Of course, to be able to survive until now, they definitely had some tricks up their sleeves. Looks like we can't enter this place. Do we have to find another way out? What are you looking for? There's no way out here. I think that even if this isn't the sea god's tomb, the key to passing the trial must be inside. The man who spoke hit the wall hard and said with a gloomy face. It wasn't easy to find a stone room. They thought that it was the tomb of the sea god. But in the end, it wasn't. Most importantly, there was a dragon-breaking stone placed in the tomb. If they wanted to enter, they couldn't use normal methods. Everyone, let's look around. Maybe there's a mechanism. This was a good idea. Unwilling to give up, everyone went around knocking on the wall, hoping to find a mechanism that could open the dragon-breaking stone. Is there really a mechanism here? Fengwu whispered to the tomb owner standing next to her. No, the spirit of the emperor said with certainty. In order to prevent people from robbing the tomb, the emperor would personally place the dragon-breaking stone in the tomb. Once the dragon-breaking stone was placed in the tomb, it couldn't be opened again. The dragon-breaking stone was made of extraordinary materials. It was made of outer space star sand and 10,000-year-cold stone. The door weighed 100,000 pounds. These two materials were famous for their sturdiness. Unless a divine weapon was used, it would be difficult for even a holy weapon to break it. Xiaowu, don't worry. The way out of here isn't through the tomb of our emperor. If there really is an exit here, it can only be in one place. Chapter 385. A soldier dressed in armor stepped forward and said loudly. His voice was as loud as thunder. Fortunately, the others could not hear him at all. Otherwise, they would have covered their ears. What is this place? Fengwu blinked cutely. Her eyes filled with curiosity. It's there. That soldier pointed at a wall with nothing in it. There's nothing there? Fengwu girl looked in the direction that the soldier was pointing at. Other than a stone wall, there was nothing else. There is. There is a secret door there. I was the one in charge of building the tomb. When I was designing the tomb, I specially got someone to make a secret door. There is an ice-fire-winged snake inside. It has both the power of fire and ice. It is the best choice to guard the tomb. In order to protect the emperor's tomb, we specially made a powerful demonic snake inside. We wanted to let those self-righteous tomb robbers, who thought that they had found a way out, suffer the consequences of their own actions. They even dared to rob our emperor's tomb. Death is not to be regretted. The more the soldier spoke, the more agitated he became. It was obvious that he hated tomb robbers, the spirit bodies at the side. Fengwu, who was involuntarily involved in tomb robbing. When that soldier finished his report, those people happened to find a well-hidden mechanism. After they excitedly opened the mechanism, the door that the soldier had mentioned opened. We finally found a way out. Everyone, let's go. Someone shouted excitedly. Everyone was very excited except for Fengwu and the spirit bodies. There is an ice-fire-winged snake inside. Are you sure there is a way out? I think that even if there is a way out, there is no way out. It has been so long. Do you guys think that the snake has already become a god? A spirit body said whimsically. Forget it. How can it become a god so easily? Moreover, there are restrictions in this tomb. There is no way it can become a god. The soldier's spirit body said confidently as he patted his chest. If they weren't sure that the snake wouldn't run away halfway, they wouldn't have locked it up to guard their emperor's tomb. Xiaowu, listen to me. Go around the ice-fire-winged snake and run forward. There is a path that leads to the underground. Once you reach the underground, you will have a chance to escape. The soldier shouted behind Fengwu. Fengwu nodded, indicating that she had heard. What's wrong? Xiaozhua asked worriedly. From the beginning, Fengwu had been whispering by herself. He had never seen Fengwu like this before, so he couldn't help but worry. I'm fine, the Fengwu girl said affirmatively. Why are you asking this? Let me tell you, when you go down later, you have to follow Xiaowu closely. The danger inside is greater than the 2 zombie corpses. Seeing that he was still confused, Bao Bao quickly changed the topic. More dangerous than a zombie? What level of danger was that? He knew how powerful the 2 zombie corpses were. If it was so dangerous inside, then why didn't Bao Bao stop them from going in? Then are we still going in? Xiaozhua looked at Bao Bao shamelessly. Bao Bao's eyes almost had the words "stupid mortal fish" written on them. Let's go in. Very good, a one-word answer. It was really neat. They followed these people into the new stone room. Originally, they thought they would see something like a sarcophagus inside. They didn't expect to see something like a sarcophagus. But what they saw made them a little confused. They saw a somewhat fat black snake, coiled in a circle, sleeping on a big rock in the middle of a pool. When it slept, its nose made a light snoring sound, and bubbles came out of its nose. On both sides of the snake, there were 2 very rare fruit trees, one red and one blue. It was obvious that they were water and fire spirit fruits. The 2 spirit fruits emitted strong water and fire elemental powers, looking very extraordinary. Although the 2 spirit fruit trees were very tempting, making people want to pick them and take them away. Looking at the sleeping snake and the black snake, everyone was a little hesitant. This guy looked very powerful, and they really wanted to rush up and fight with it. Among these people, there were already people who recognized that this snake was obviously a precious sacred beast from ancient times, the ice-fire-winged snake. In ancient times, the ice-fire-winged snake was also a very powerful existence, but later on, because of their powerful combat power, they were coveted by many demons. In order to capture the ice-fire-winged snake to fight for them, the demons sent a large number of demons to capture the ice-fire-winged snake. In that battle, many ice-fire-winged snakes died at the hands of those demons, and only a few survived, and since then, they lived in seclusion in the depths of the spirit world, never appearing in front of people again. There were legends that said that there were no more than 10 ice-fire-winged snakes alive, and they were a super rare sacred beast. Those who recognized the icefire-winged snake were very nervous. This was one of the strongest sacred beasts in the legends. If they really fought, would they really have a chance to survive? In front of their little lives and spirit fruits, everyone decisively chose their own little lives. Fuck. This is the tomb guardian magical beast you chose? Are you kidding me? This guy was born less than 20 years ago. It's simply a baby magical beast, still at the age of drinking milk. That's right, could it be that you put in an egg, and after 10,000 years, it finally hatched? No, I think it's impossible for General XX to be so unreliable. Don't you think that maybe the snake was bored and gave birth to a baby to play with? It's possible, but where's its mother? Where's its mother? After these spirits saw the icefire-winged snake, they began to have a heated discussion. Because no one saw them along the way, they were used to talking to themselves like this. Anyway, they were not afraid of disturbing others. Of course, they could talk as loudly as they wanted, and there was no need to be afraid of being heard at all. Unfortunately, they forgot one thing. As spirits, they couldn't be too rigid. Humans couldn't see them, but it didn't mean that magical beasts couldn't see them. The icefire-winged snake, who was awakened by the noise, was very unhappy. It didn't even open its eyes to look at Feng Xiang, who was speaking. This flame was not an ordinary flame. The fire of the icefire-winged snake was a kind of strange flame. Once touched, it would not be easy to extinguish, and the temperature was as high as the eruption of magma. Such a terrible flame attack. At least you should open your eyes and make some noise to attack. Why didn't you follow the routine? While everyone was complaining in their hearts, they moved to the sides at the same time. Fengwu also pulled Shouzo to dodge quickly. Fuck. It spits fire at the slightest disagreement. Everyone be careful, this guy is very powerful. After dodging, everyone raised their swords and wands. A big battle was about to break out. Chapter 386. As a rare icefire-winged snake, it already knew its own species and origin from its own inheritance. His mother was a beautiful icefire-winged serpent. She was also a famous beauty among her own kind. Once, after quarreling with her kind for a while, his mother wanted to go to the human world to relax and vent the dissatisfaction in her heart. But what its mother didn't expect was that in this trip to the human world, it was unlucky enough to be captured by humans. Moreover, it was sealed in this emperor's tomb, where it couldn't see the light of day. Although the life in the emperor's tomb was quiet, it was too boring. Its mother, who liked to be lively, felt that this kind of life was simply not something a magical beast could live. So its mother used her own blood to give birth to it. And its mother also died after giving birth to it, because of exhaustion. Since then, its mother was freed and would never be bored again. But the pitiful snake began to replace its mother to live a boring life. Every day, it would eat and sleep and eat without any pressure. The little icefire-winged snake said that actually, there was nothing bad about this. It ate and slept well every day. No one had ever come to the emperor's tomb. However, it hoped that someone would come in. If the person who came in was not bad, it could choose one of them to form an equal contract. Then it could use the power of the contract to leave here. Today, when it opened its eyes, there were actually humans. These humans looked exactly the same as the ones it saw in its inheritance. So they were humans, but they were too weak. Each and every one of them was like a weak chicken. Thinking about the memories its mother left for it, there were those powerful people. Comparing the results, these people didn't know that they were already treated as dregs by the icefire-winged snake. Hey, humans, what are you doing here? The icefire-winged snake's eyes were big, and a pair of golden vertical pupils. Its voice was unexpectedly small. Its voice was similar to a 5 or 6-year-old child. After the icefire-winged snake heard the movement, it opened its eyes and saw this group of people standing not far from it. They were looking at it with vigilance. Not far from these people, it actually saw one of the people who captured its mother. But that person didn't have a body. From its inheritance, it knew that those people who didn't have a body were dead. No, it should be said that they were the souls of the dead. She was already dead, and it had no intention of rushing up to avenge its mother. It just looked at the intruders lazily, feeling very curious. I'm sorry, We didn't mean to disturb you. We just wanted to find a way out. Seeing that the ice-fire-winged serpent was no longer attacking, these people naturally wouldn't take the initiative to provoke it. Taking the initiative to provoke a combat-type holy beast, they wouldn't be courting death. A swordsman holding a sword stepped forward, representing everyone to talk to this ice-fire-winged snake that seemed to be reasonable. Go out? You guys actually still want to go out? If I could go out, I would have gone out long ago. Meng Meng's cute voice sounded very cute, but the words that came out of his mouth made people want to beat him up. You mean there's no way out of this place? No. No way. There must be a way to leave this damned place. I don't believe it. I don't believe that there's no way out of such a huge tomb. Some of the guys who were already emotionally unstable immediately said excitedly. Hee, don't even think about it. If I could go out, I would have gone out long ago. Otherwise, who would be willing to stay in this damned place? While speaking, the serpent swung its tail, and a red and a blue fruit fell onto its coiled-up body. Crunch! In just 2 or 3 bites, the 2 spirit fruits were finished. Everyone stared at this ice-fire-winged snake with envy and jealousy. These days, even a magical beast was living a better life than humans. Looking at its skillful action of eating the spirit fruits, one look, and one could tell that it was eating the spirit fruits as food all day long. They also wanted to have spirit fruits to eat for 3 meals a day, but unfortunately, this could only be a dream. Can we go inside and take a look? Xiazhua politely stepped forward, neither servile nor overbearing. There's nothing inside. Are you sure you want to go in? The ice-fire-winged snake felt that these humans simply had nothing to do after eating. There was obviously nothing inside, but they still wanted to rush in. Don't know if it's convenient. The swordsman who spoke at the beginning also agreed after hearing Xiaozua's words. In any case, before they searched the entire stone room, they couldn't give up any hope. If you want to go, then go. The Qiucheng Tai-yin indifferently said. This time, everyone was happy. Finally, they didn't need to fight to solve the problem. God knows, they didn't want to cause any more problems. No one noticed that since this ice-fire-winged snake started to talk, Fengwu girl's eyes were sparkling. Since entering this place, she hadn't encountered any plants or magical beasts that had independent thoughts. She had been unable to sense their emotions, but now she finally saw a magical beast that could talk. Fengwu girl made a decision. After everyone bid farewell to this friendly ice-fire-winged snake, Fengwu unexpectedly went straight to the side of the pool. Her pair of eyes were sparkling, happily staring at this rare ice-fire-winged snake in front of her. Fengwu, Xiazhua was extremely anxious, but he didn't dare to go forward. Now the ice-fire-winged snake hadn't started to attack Fengwu. If he went forward, the ice-fire-winged snake would mistake him for wanting to attack. At that time, not only would he not be able to bring Fengwu back, he would also put her in danger. Fuck. This girl is too awesome. What does she want to do? She mustn't implicate us. Even daring to approach the ice-fire-winged snake, she doesn't want to live anymore. I really can't see it. Could it be that this girl wants to fight with that ice-fire-winged snake alone? She already let us go. What's the point of fighting alone? If she causes me to die here, I will definitely take her down with me before I die. The person who spoke had a vicious aura. With one look, one could tell that he wasn't a person with a good temper. How can this girl be so bold? She mustn't implicate us. These people were discussing spiritedly. They were very afraid that because of Fengwu, they had to stop and fight with this awesome ice-fire-winged snake. They could obviously leave, but at this time, because of someone they didn't know, they had no choice but to fight. It was simply too difficult for them to accept. Hello, my name is Fengwu. My friends call me Xiaowu. If possible, I want to be friends with you. Fengwu girl somewhat nervously looked at the ice-fire-winged snake, somewhat worried that she would be rejected. When she spoke, she still looked so serious. Her pair of big black eyes still had a trace of persistence. Chapter 387. She still looked so serious when she spoke, and there was a trace of persistence in her big black eyes. Ice-fire-winged snake. This human feels so strange. Her aura smells so good. Maybe being friends with her is a good choice. Everyone, Girl, you actually want to be friends with the famous ice-fire-winged snake. Are you sure you're not sent by monkeys to make fun of us? Be friends? Well, I quite like your aura. I'll remember to be friends with you. The big snake head tilted, and the ice-fire-winged snake nodded its head, agreeing without any pressure. Damn, we're friends now. It must be the way I open my eyes. I'll close my eyes for a while, and then open them again. I can't believe it. She actually succeeded. If I had known earlier, I would have walked up. Then I could also be friends with such an awesome holy beast. This is luck. Look at her. She's beautiful and strong. She can still come back alive after falling off the cliff. This time she took the initiative to hook up with the ice-fire-winged snake. She actually succeeded. Hearing you say that, I'm beginning to suspect that the girl is the illegitimate daughter of the world's consciousness. How can her luck be so good? If Irene heard someone say this, she would definitely refute loudly. You're mistaken. The real illegitimate daughter of the world's consciousness is the female lead, Zicheng. Then we're friends. What's your name? Fengwu, who had made a new friend, was very happy. While speaking, she threw the chicken legs and meat buns she had collected to the ice-fire-winged snake to eat. The ice-fire-winged snake looked at these and tilted its head. It smelled the fragrance of the chicken legs and meat buns. It had never smelled this fragrance before. It was so fragrant. A voice began to echo in its mind. Eat, eat, eat. The voice kept repeating. Ha. It ate a chicken leg in a big bite. The delicious taste of the chicken legs instantly conquered the country turtle snake that had never eaten before. How could there be such delicious things in this world? Although the magic element content was very low, it was really delicious. Seeing that she was even willing to share such delicious food with it, it would tell it her name. My name is White Lotus. White Lotus proudly announced his name. This name was too powerful. Why would a black lotus be named White Lotus? You could have just been named Black Lotus. Tell me, can you find any white spots on your body? Can you find it? Can you find it? Everyone silently spammed the bullet screen in their hearts. Even Shozo, who had just been relieved that Fengwu would not be in any danger, followed these people and spammed the bullet screen several times, wondering if he should fire again. Are you a girl? The name by Lian made Fengwu's first impression was that her new friend was actually a girl. You're a girl. Your whole family is made up of girls. White Lotus, who had always thought of himself as a pure man of 24K, couldn't take it anymore. I'm a girl. Fengwu blinked innocently. Very good. Bai Lian silently swallowed a mouthful of old blood. What you said makes sense. I actually have nothing to say. I'm a male, do you know that? Forget it. It was magnanimous enough to forgive her this time. But you're called White Lotus. Fengwu said seriously. So what if I'm called White Lotus? Lotus is my favorite flower. There were originally 2 here, but unfortunately I ate them. Thinking of the 2 lotus flowers that were eaten by it, White Lotus felt a little regretful. He should have left them behind to let this friend see the beauty of lotus. Then why not call yourself Black Lotus? A heroic magician couldn't help but ask. Who knew that White Lotus would fiercely slap the ground with his tail? Just when everyone thought that this ice-fire-winged snake was going to show off its power, it only slapped the ground once, and didn't do anything else. Just that. How can Black Lotus be more beautiful than White Lotus? White Lotus rolled his eyes, and cast a look of disdain at the guy who spoke. White Lotus felt that humans' aesthetic was not as good as magical beasts. But you're obviously black, Fengwu asked puzzledly. Just like the dogs in the village, white ones were called Little White and Big White. Black ones were called Little Black and Big Black. Yellow ones were called Little Yellow or Big Yellow. And if there were flowers, they would be called Big Flower and Little Flower. No one would be so bored as to call a black dog Little White, and a white dog Little Black. I'm going to be called White Lotus. I like the name White Lotus. Who dares to have an opinion? After saying that, his eyes narrowed. This was obviously a blatant threat. No opinion. White Lotus is a good name. It's a match made in heaven with you. Not bad, not bad. You really have good taste. Only such a tasteful name is worthy of you. This name can't be more compatible with Ruthless. Lord White Lotus, I've never lied. Today I'll tell you the truth. You and this name, it's a perfect match for my face. Xiazhua, Fengwu. White Lotus, there are still many people with good taste these days. Since we're friends, then Lord will accompany you to take a look inside. White Lotus looked at Fengwu proudly and said, "You're such a good White Lotus." The Fengwu girl said with a smile, "No, we're not good. Why does this guy have to come with us? If it suddenly attacks, who can stop it? Once Lord White Lotus decides on something, it's not something you can stop." Thus, in the exploration of the tomb ahead, there was an additional sacred beast called the ice-fire-winged snake. When they left the pool, White Lotus actually put the 2 trees next to it into its sacred beast space. As for its mother's body, it had always been stored in its space by White Lotus. There was no need to take it away. Just now, White Lotus really didn't think that they could leave this place, but after seeing Fengwu and the wise beast, it changed its mind. Following them might really be able to leave this place. Back then, its mother was trapped in this place for 10,000 years and couldn't get out. It was only 20 years old. It might be able to do what its mother couldn't do for 10,000 years. It's not good to get excited just thinking about it. That's right. White Lotus had only been born for less than 20 years. Although it was small, it was born from the condensation of its mother's essence, blood, and strength. Therefore, White Lotus' starting point was much higher than many naturally pregnant sacred beasts. Before White Lotus's mother died, she gave all her power to White Lotus. If not for this, who knows how long it would have taken for White Lotus to be born. With its mother's power, although White Lotus was only equivalent to a baby among magical beasts, its strength was enough to crush everyone here. Chapter 388. Beyond the pool, they could see a long tomb path. White Lotus had often run in that direction. It wanted to find a chance to leave this damned place, and not stay here to be some sacred guardian beast. Unfortunately, it had explored the tomb path many times without finding anything. In the end, White Lotus finally gave up, until Fengwu and the others arrived. Only then did White Lotus regain a bit of confidence. Bai Lian transformed herself into a small black snake, and wrapped it around Fengwu's wrist. If one didn't look closely, it would look like an exquisitely crafted black bracelet. It was so realistic that it could be mistaken for a real bracelet. "Do you think that little guy can really see us?" The spirits behind Fengwu looked curiously at Little Black. "Maybe. Didn't it just breathe fire at us?" "That makes sense. It might really be able to see us. I've never heard of a magical beast having the ability to see spirits before. What do you think is going on with this little guy? How can it see us?" "I think it might be a coincidence. These juniors were standing in front of us just now. Maybe it wanted to breathe fire at them." "That makes sense. I think so too." The spirits were divided into 2 factions. One faction felt that White Lotus could see them, and the other faction felt that it could not. White Lotus's reaction was to lazily glance at them. A bunch of idiots. Other than Fengwu and White Lotus, the others did not know that there was a group of noisy spirits behind them. These people hurried forward, hoping to find a way to get through this obstacle. "There's no way." The people walking in front slammed the wall dejectedly, their eyes full of disappointment. "Everyone, let's see if there's any mechanism. Didn't we find a mechanism to get in just now?" Someone did not give up hope. Everyone thought about it and agreed. Maybe there really was a mechanism in this place. "Is there a mechanism?" A spirit who did not know the situation asked curiously. "There is, but that path is not easy to walk." The spirit of the general shook its head. There was indeed a way to get out from here, but it would be very dangerous. It was very likely that everyone would die. When they built the mausoleum, they never thought of letting the tomb robbers out. The only path was not dug by them, but by the craftsmen who were afraid of being buried with them. They had secretly dug this secret tunnel, so that when the mausoleum was about to be closed, they could sneak out through this tunnel and escape with a slim chance of survival. Since the ancient times, all the craftsmen who had participated in the construction of the emperor's mausoleum, as well as those in charge who had seen the topographic map of the emperor's mausoleum, were mostly buried together with the emperor's mausoleum. As a result, when choosing craftsmen, they would often choose criminals on death row who had committed grave crimes as priority. If there weren't enough criminals on death row, they would also choose some people who were willing to be buried with them to participate in the construction of the mausoleum. Those who willingly entered the mausoleum to be buried with the dead would usually treat this as their only chance of survival. They would find an opportunity to create an opportunity for themselves to escape. This secret passage was secretly dug by some prisoners on death row in order to escape with their lives. At that time, the person in charge of supervising the construction of the mausoleum had discovered their secret passageway and had killed the few death row criminals who had participated in it. It could be considered as killing one police officer and 100 others. Although those people had already been killed, the secret passageway they had dug out was still there. It would be somewhat difficult to patch up this secret passageway. As a result, at that time, they had installed protective measures at the only exit. After so many years, they didn't know what had become of that place. One had to know that back then, they had made that thing go down Fengwu, and the others didn't know about this. Everyone was actively searching for the mechanism to open the door. This mechanism was extremely difficult to find. Everyone had knocked on every single wall, but they still couldn't find anything. Hurry up and tell Xiao Wu where the mechanism is. What are you still standing there in a daze for? The little maid at the side shouted at the general, who was in a daze. Xiao Wu, the mechanism is actually under your feet. The area under your feet is the one. If you want to go down, then break the ground under your feet. There is a mechanism underground that can be activated. Although the general was worried that the thing below would grow too terrifying and put his benefactor in danger, since his benefactor wanted to go out, no matter what, he would risk his life to protect his benefactor. Fengwu listened and nodded. She circulated dou qi to her feet and then stomped on the ground. A small area on the ground actually began to break open. Everyone look. She found the mechanism. Someone saw the empty area under Fengwu's feet and shouted excitedly. Ho ho ho, there was finally hope for an exit. A group of people excitedly surrounded Fengwu and looked at the secret chamber that had just been revealed. Who would have thought that the mechanism was actually on the ground? They had walked around and stepped on it so many times, but no one had discovered it. Fortunately, Fengwu had discovered it. Otherwise, wouldn't they be trapped here until they died? The Fengwu girl had already moved her feet away, revealing a turntable-like mechanism inside. This turntable-like mechanism should be the mechanism to open the next tomb passage. Now, everyone could finally leave this damned place. A male swordsman impatiently turned the turntable-like mechanism. The moment the turntable-like mechanism was turned, the ground began to rumble. The ground began to shake more and more violently. Everyone tried to grab onto something to maintain their balance. Unfortunately, before they could grab onto anything, the ground began to collapse. The tomb passage began to collapse. When Fengwu wanted to escape with Shouzo, it was already too late. The ground collapsed, and everyone fell from the collapsed area. Ah! 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 A series of blood-curdling screams could be heard. The people here had fought their way through blood and gore. As they screamed, they reacted quickly and added a layer of defensive barrier around themselves. This defensive barrier could at least minimize the damage they received. Splash! Splash! A series of splashes could be heard. It was Fengwu and the others who had fallen from the sky. They did not fall to the ground, but fell into a deep and cold lake. Quickly go ashore. There's something under the water. Everyone swam to the shore in a panic. Even Shouzo tried his best to swim to the shore. He had learned his lesson when he fell this time. He reacted quickly and put on a defensive scroll. Otherwise, with his useless body, it would be a problem for him to stay awake. Oh no, that thing is eating my magic shield. A mage who was physically weak shouted in panic. Chapter 389. What kind of weird fish is this? Someone cursed. That's right. What attacked them was not some extraordinary monster. It was just a kind of small fish the size of a palm. However, these small fish were not ordinary creatures. They had sharp teeth in their mouths, and they could also swallow their dou qi and magic. Their lethality was not ordinary. Come ashore. Everyone hurry up. There were people who swam to the shore as fast as they could. But there were also some who were unlucky. Before they could swim to the shore, they were already eaten by the fish. Not even a bone was left. It was brutal. Xiazhua panted heavily. His face was extremely pale. A sharp pain came from his thigh. This was the pain of being bitten by these weird fish. That's right. There were 3 palm-sized silver-white fishes biting onto his thigh. These fishes wouldn't let go once they were bitten, and some of their bites were extremely painful. Like Xiazhua, there were a few people who came ashore with fish. They were the ones who were eaten by the weird fish before they could get up. They almost died in the fish's stomach. It was too painful. These fishes were biting his flesh tightly. That kind of pain was like digging out his bones. Let us go. Fengwu was lucky. Her ducky was not eaten up, and she came ashore. She noticed Xiazhua as soon as he came ashore, and immediately went to help. However, these fishes refused to let go. Some people tried to use fire magic to burn these fishes to death, but it was useless. Magic and Douqi attacks had no effect on these fishes. They were just as difficult to deal with as the zombies that were chasing them not long ago. Fengwu also tried to use her ducky, but it was useless. She took out her pure sword and tried to use the power of the pure sword. The moment the pure sword appeared, those fishes that were still biting onto the human's body couldn't wait to loosen their jaws. Then, they jumped into the water and quickly sank, disappearing without a trace. The densely packed little white fishes just now simply ran away without leaving a single one behind. Everyone they escaped. These people had already noticed that the sword in Fengwu's hand was extraordinary. When fighting against the 2 corpse fiends, only Fengwu's sword had caused damage to them. The other people's attacks had no effect at all. Oh my god, this sword is a divine weapon in the end. Why are these ferocious fish so afraid of it? Many people coveted the sword in Fengwu's hand, and some even had the idea of killing her to seize the treasure. The Heavenly Wind continent had never been a paradise for people to live and work in peace and contentment. The law of the jungle was enforced here, where the strong survived and the weak were eliminated. Without sufficient strength, but with a powerful weapon. If this wasn't tempting to commit a crime, then what was? Little girl, your sword is quite powerful. Could it be that this is a holy sword? A middle-aged man, who thought he was older, approached Fengwu and asked about Xiaochun. No, Xiaochun had said that he was a divine sword. Wasn't it? Who are you trying to fool? Sure enough, he was still young, and thought that he could fool them like this. The middle-aged man who spoke thought disdainfully. Since it's not, why don't you sell this sword to me? You can name the price. The man said with a forthright expression. Xiazhua looked at this scene with an ashen face. This man was really shameless. No. Fengwu shook her head and rejected. Why don't uncle use his own sword to exchange with you? The man looked at Fengwu and pointed to the beautiful sword in his hand that was inlaid with many magical beast cores and stones. No. Xiaochun was a friend, so she would not exchange with him. To Fengwu, Xiaochun was her sword and also her friend. The only people who came from another world like her were Xiaochun and her master. Therefore, Xiaochun was a special existence to Fengwu. How could she exchange Xiaochun with a stranger? Uncle's sword is worth 10 million gold coins. Are you sure you don't want to consider it? The man saw that Fengwu did not agree no matter what he said. He was annoyed. Lao Zi's sword took 3 whole years, and nearly 10 million gold coins to forge. Now he wanted to use it to exchange for your broken sword, and you still did not agree. You are really shameless. No. Fengwu still shook her head firmly. Xiazhua breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Fengwu did not agree. He was really afraid that Fengwu would not know anything, and be cheated of the sword by this man. This guy is too shameless. He wants to use an ordinary magical sword to exchange for a divine sword. You can't be so shameless. You might as well just rob it. That's right. This is too embarrassing. The sword masters at the side whispered, and felt that the middle-aged man was shameless. The man sighed, and did not say anything to Fengwu. He obediently moved to the side, and did not try to trick Fengwu into giving up the sword in her hand. Although the man had walked away, everyone could imagine that he hadn't given up yet. As long as he had the chance, he would try to take the sword back. But next time, he wouldn't come to talk to Fengwu nicely. He might even use his explosive strength. After watching a good show, the injured sat on the shore and cleaned their wounds. Those who had medicine directly drank it. Fortunately, this was a world of magic and swords. As long as they drank some healing medicine, their flesh wounds would heal very quickly. Even Xiazhua, who had the weakest physique, drank the medicine from his space ring. His wounds quickly healed and formed a pink scar. While the injured were being treated, everyone began to size up their position. This was a very huge underground cave. Of course, such a huge cave could not have been dug out by a few death row convicts. In fact, it was those death row convicts who discovered this place and dug out a way out of this cave. This cave was extremely huge. The place they fell into was a cold pond that was emitting cold air. Not far from the cold pond was a gurgling river. The river water flowed to an unknown place. It was very clear and bright. On the bank of the river was a large stone path. The path was filled with small stones. In addition, in the direction of the river flow, they could see a deep passage. They did not know if it led to the exit. Let's go. Hopefully we can get out of here. After the wounds were treated, everyone continued on their way. Fengwu followed behind everyone as usual and walked together with Xiazhua. In the cave, the sound of the flowing river was very clear. The humidity here was heavier and gave off a gloomy feeling. Even with magic and fighting energy protecting their bodies, it still made them shiver. It's so dark in here. After walking for a short while, they stood in the direction of the flowing river. In front of them was a very dark and deep passage. Let's go. Everyone keep up. I wonder if something will come out of it. That's right. This is too dark. Chapter 390. Since it was so dark, they would need a light source if they wanted to enter the tunnel. Therefore, the person at the front took out his light source. However, they did not expect that when the light shone, a large group of monsters would fly towards them. Fengwu reacted quickly and pulled Shozo to the side. Their position was not bad, as they had not entered the tunnel yet. What's that? Damn it, it's fish one moment, and then it's a bunch of monsters the next. Is there an end to this? Stop screaming. If I'm not mistaken, they're probably just bats. The sudden light must have stimulated them, causing them to suddenly fly toward us. Among the men, the female magician was the calmest. She was the first to discover the identity of the mysterious creatures. Fengwu and Shozo saw them too. They were just ordinary bats. Be careful, Fengwu reminded Shozo. Shozo nodded. Although it was embarrassing to be protected by a girl all the time, he could not care less if he wanted to get out. Those at the back keep up. Everyone be careful. The person walking at the front yelled at the group. Since the place was dangerous, no one wanted to move alone. What a joke. Moving separately in a place like this was suicide. Everyone followed one another. The sound of a woman crying and the sound of flowing water could be heard from the cave. It was terrifying. Under the light, they could see that there was nothing in the cave except for a small river. The walls on both sides were smooth and moist. Everyone stepped on the water and moved forward. This sound is too strange. Is there really a ghost? Someone could not help but murmur. Don't say that. What kind of ghost could there be? It's just the sound of the wind. Yeah, it must be the sound of the wind. The others agreed. It was hard to tell if they were comforting the person or themselves. The spirits, actually, were not at the front. We're at the back. Junior, look behind you. The further they went, the heavier Shozo's heart became, as if something bad was about to happen. I have a bad feeling, Shozo whispered as he tugged on Fengwu's sleeve. There's something powerful ahead. Fengwu had already heard from Ling that there was a very troublesome big guy ahead. At this time, Bao Bao, who was sitting on Fengwu's head and dozing off, suddenly saw something. Under the water, fish tails, blood corpses, a screaming Shozo, and humans running in all directions. Sigh, this was the downside of a drop in power. He could not see the complete future, and he could not see it on his own. He could only wait for the flash of inspiration. No one noticed that the shadows of 3 gold coins had appeared on the baby's eggshell. That's right, you didn't see wrong. They were gold coins. The 3 gold coins was Bao Bao's own special ability to predict the future. Bao Bao could predict the good or bad of what he saw. This was a complementary power to his ability to foresee the future. In the original book, the wise beast did not have such an ability. In fact, Bao Bao's original consciousness was wiped out by Zicheng. Although the other consciousness was created by Zicheng, the soul was changed. This ability to foresee the future was hidden in the depths of Bao Bao's soul. The shadows of the 3 gold coins danced on the eggshell. No one noticed it, not even Shouzo, who knew about the future. The gold coins danced on the eggshell and finally calmed down. Bao Bao looked at the divination and frowned. 9 deaths. Bad omen. You two be careful. The thing ahead is very dangerous. If you're not careful, you'll die here. Bao Bao warned Xiazhua and Feng Wu in a low voice. Although he liked Feng Wu more, he didn't hate Xiazhua. Now that they were in a life-or-death situation, Bao Bao was afraid that he would die here if he didn't remind him. We know. Shouzo responded. Feng Wu nodded calmly. Xiao Wu, you must be careful. I just did a divination. It's a 9 death sign. You must be careful. Don't be careless. Bao Bao secretly used his consciousness to tell Feng Wu the result of his divination. For Bao Bao, Feng Wu was the master he had personally chosen. He could not let anything happen to her. Unlike auspicious beasts like phoenixes, which valued their appearance and bloodline, wise beasts valued their souls more. If anything happened to Feng Wu, it would never be able to find another master who was so compatible with them. Okay. Feng Wu only said one word. The group of people walked through the river, and their shoes were all wet. The further they walked, the deeper the water became. After walking for a while, the water was up to their waist. In order to find out if there was a way out, they did not care where the water was, and continued to walk forward. Although Shouzo was not strong, he had a lot of scrolls to protect himself. He was not afraid of moving in the water. The water was getting deeper and deeper. Finally, it was almost above their heads. Everyone dive into the water. I suspect that the way out is under the water. Okay, let's go down and see. There may be a way out. Everyone exchanged glances. One by one, they began to activate their shields to sink. Even Shouzo activated a scroll with a water-repelling function. He used the scroll to protect himself as he sank into the water. Feng Wu followed Shouzo into the water. The water was very deep. The passage in the water was longer, but they did not know if it led to a way out. Feng Wu protected herself with the Douqi shield and moved forward with the group. They swam along the river. Although they could not see where the end was, no one looked back. At this time, they did not know that upstream, a coffin slowly opened by itself. A beautiful woman in a red dress stood beside the coffin and screamed to the sky. Ha! The woman's voice traveled very far. It reached the depths of the passage. Unfortunately, Feng Wu and the others were underwater. They did not hear anything. The red hair of the woman in red fluttered in the air, but her red eyes were looking in the direction where Feng Wu and the others had left. After a long roar, she rose up against the wind and flew off the ground, quickly moving in the direction where Feng Wu and the others had left. At this moment, at the end of the river, a woman who was sleeping in a huge shell and whose lower body resembled a fish's tail opened her eyes when she heard a long whistle. Hiss! The woman opened her mouth, revealing a mouthful of fierce fangs. The woman sat up on the shell bed. Her blue eyes were filled with killing intent as she looked upstream. Her red tongue licked her fangs, revealing a bloodthirsty smile. Feng Wu and the others did not know that they were targeted by 2 unknown creatures. They continued to swim along the underwater passage. Chapter 391. In the underwater tunnel, the light was dim. Fortunately, the few people swimming in front had magic tools to illuminate the path ahead. Feng Wu and Xiazhua were a little behind. This tunnel was straight and extended as if there was no end. They had been swimming for so long, but they still could not see the exit. What's that? Someone exclaimed. Look ahead. Everyone looked ahead with the help of the light. They saw a huge shell bed at the bottom of the water. A beautiful woman with a fishtail was half lying on the shell bed and looking at them. The woman's uneven fangs were proof that she was not human. The woman looked at them with a hint of eagerness in her cold eyes. It was as if she was looking at some delicious food. Her long tongue licked her fangs from time to time. This scene was strange no matter how one looked at it. Is this a mermaid? Someone said with uncertainty. Mermaids were a type of creature that was very similar to mermaids. Mermaids were docile and timid. They would hide far away when they saw humans. However, mermaids were very powerful with sound attacks. Fortunately, mermaids were very peaceful and would never attack humans. If humans wanted to attack them, it would not be easy. As for mermaids, they were very similar to humans. They had a half-fish, half-human body. Their fangs were uneven like saw teeth, and they were very hostile to humans. They were warlike by nature and loved to kill. They had the ability to control water. In the water, few people were a match for them. They were one of the strongest in the sea. However, be it mermaids or mermaids, they did not like to appear in front of people. Moreover, these two races were very well hidden. No one had ever found them. A merman suddenly appeared in this place, causing everyone here to be shocked. This was the main battlefield of the mermaids. Fighting a mermaid in the water, the chances of winning were almost zero. Hiss! The female mermaid's jagged fangs made a hissing sound. A bloodthirsty red light flashed in her eyes. Everyone prepare for battle. This is a mermaid. Following a loud roar, everyone was on guard. The woman smiled coldly and flipped her palm gently. Suddenly, two whirlpools appeared under the water. The whirlpools spun continuously, and those who were close to them were sucked into the whirlpools without being able to resist. Ah! Help! Come and save him! What's going on? I can't get out! Those who were sucked in could not get out no matter how hard they tried. They could only be sucked in by the whirlpool. Plop plop. The woman gently waved her other hand, and a few huge water pillars began to attack the humans, who were not sucked into the whirlpool, as if they had their own consciousness. People scrambled to avoid the attacks of the water pillars. These water pillars were extremely lethal. If they were hit, even if they didn't die, they would be seriously injured. Now, it was unknown whether those who were sucked into the whirlpool were luckier, or those who weren't sucked in were luckier. Soon they knew the answer. Those whirlpools were moved to the mermaid's side with a wave of her hand. Then she reached out and grabbed a random person out of the whirlpool. Before that person could resist, a pair of hands with long nails reached into that person's heart. That unlucky man could only let out a scream before his heart was mercilessly dug out. The man died as his heart was dug out. Bright red blood flowed out from the hole in the man's heart, dyeing the clean water red. The mermaid grabbed the fresh heart that had just been dug out and ate it in big mouthfuls. That blissful expression made people who didn't know better think that she was eating some delicacy in the world. Everyone who saw this swallowed their saliva nervously. Although they knew that mermaids were cruel and vicious, legends were definitely just legends. At this moment, everyone truly understood how terrifying a mermaid was. To this mermaid, humans might just be her food. She didn't care about anyone here at all. So powerful. Fengwu's eyes lit up and then dimmed. What should I do if I can't beat her? Fengwu girl already knew that this mermaid with a fishtail was very powerful. She wasn't someone she could defeat now. What should I do? Fengwu thought in frustration. Xiaowu, don't be afraid. Do you see that seashell bed? We can leave from there after moving the boat away. Think of a way to lure her away from the bed. A soldier who participated in the work of sealing the underground cave popped his head out and made his presence known. These words were really easy to say. Bai Lian and Bao Bao rolled their eyes at the same time. Bai Lian had been nestling on Fengwu's little wrist, peacefully acting as a bracelet. He wasn't interested in the fierce battle in front of him at all. Of course, if Fengwu was in danger, he would still help. As for the others, it had nothing to do with him. XXX, I say, what were you guys thinking back then? Why did you seal such a powerful thing in here? Do you still want Xiaowu to get out? A beautiful and cute little maid angrily pointed at the general, who was in charge of the construction of the mausoleum, and shouted. The general laughed bitterly. You can't blame me for this. When we were building this mausoleum, we naturally did it as safely as possible. How would I know that this would happen later? The spirits thought about it and agreed. They really couldn't blame him for this. After all, he wouldn't have foreseen this before. But what should they do now? This mermaid was so powerful. With Fengwu's small arms and legs, it was really impossible for her to defeat it. Why was it so difficult to get out? Don't tell me you did something else. Someone suddenly remembered that this general was a person who liked to use double insurance. Haha. I even got my subordinates to seal a zombie upstream. The general said a little embarrassedly. If he had known what would happen later, he wouldn't have done such a troublesome thing even if he was beaten to death. Zombie? Don't tell me it's the zombie that massacred so many tribes back then. Obviously, those who knew the possible origins of this zombie all covered their mouths and exclaimed. The ancient era was an era where demons ran rampant. In that era, many dangerous creatures and humans lived in the same space. Humans were not as powerful as they were now, unifying the Heavenly Wind continent. In the Heavenly Wind continent at that time, although the human population was the largest, compared to the other races, they didn't have any advantage at all. Many powerful creatures whose legacies had long been cut off in the modern era were active in that era. They were incomparably powerful and were born with great strength. Humans couldn't compare to them. Chapter 392. At that time, no one would have thought that the last ones to unify the Heavenly Wind continent would be the humans that were looked down upon by those powerful creatures. And the zombie was one of the powerful creatures that ran amok during that time. Actually, the formation of the zombie had a lot to do with humans. In ancient times, many human tribes were used to offering sacrifices to gods or powerful demons. What did they offer as sacrifices? Beautiful virgins who had reached the age of 16. The sacrificed girls would immediately die. After the girls died, their bodies would be taken over by a small spirit called a succubus. When the two fused, the zombie was born. Of course, not all corpses could fuse with a succubus. The success rate of this fusion was not high. If it was high, the succubus would have already taken over the human world. After the fusion of corpses and succubi, a new creature was formed, a succubus. It was incomparably powerful. Its body was as hard as the hardest ore, and it could absorb human blood to evolve. The more powerful a warrior or magician was, the more delicious their body would be to the zombie demon. The zombie sealed here had destroyed a few tribes in order to evolve, sucking everyone in the tribes clean. At that time, the one in charge of getting rid of this zombie was another general. That general had wanted to kill the zombie completely, but the general in charge of building the mausoleum, at that time, had the idea of using this zombie to guard the only exit that had been created by the death row prisoners. Thus, this zombie managed to escape the calamity and successfully survived from 10,000 years ago until today. Since it wasn't a secret that the zombie had massacred those tribes back then, when they heard about the zombie, those in the know guessed the origin of the zombie. Fengwu successfully dodged a water pillar attack. When she knew that there was another thing that could appear at any time, her small eyebrows furrowed slightly. Fengwu, what are you thinking about? Be careful not to get hit. Xiazhua saw that Fengwu was still in a daze and said worriedly, I'm thinking about how to leave this place. Fengwu turned her head and looked at Xiazhua seriously. Leave this place? But we don't even know where the exit is. How are we supposed to leave? Shouzo also wanted to leave. Even if this was an infinite dungeon, it was better than staying here and waiting for death. I know where the exit is. It's under the shell bed, she said. Underneath the shell bed was the exit. Xiazhua was shocked. He wanted to ask who told her, but then he thought that it might be baby Rue, so he didn't ask again. Fortunately, he did not ask. If he did, with Fengwu's character of not lying, this lie would not be easy to pull off. Everyone listen up. The exit is right under that seashell bed. As long as we move the bed away, we can leave this place. Shouzo thought for a moment and came up with a solution. If she wanted to leave now, the only way was to gather everyone's strength. With just her and Fengwu, it was really not easy to accomplish this. Everyone who was not far from Shouzo heard this sentence. They were shocked and wanted to get closer to Shouzo to ask, but the mermaid's attacks were getting stronger. It was not easy to get close to Shouzo. Although they did not know how Shouzo knew where the exit was, They thought that he would not lie to them. At this time, there was no need for him to tell such a lie. Therefore, those who knew the way to leave spread the news to those who did not hear it. In the end, almost everyone already knew that the exit was under the shell bed. Think of a way to get her out of that bed first. Everyone thought of the same problem. They had to get the mermaid out of the shell bed. Otherwise, no one would be able to leave this place. Because they knew where the exit was. As long as they could hold on to a little hope, no one would want the only way to leave to be fake. Therefore, no one doubted the truth of this statement at all. Everyone was working hard to leave, and so was Feng Wu. She successfully led Shouzo to avoid the water pillars that attacked them, and the whirlpools that occasionally circled around them. There were a few times when Shouzo was almost swept away, and it was Feng Wu who pulled him back time and time again. In order to leave, everyone went from avoiding the water pillars to taking the initiative to attack. One by one, they attacked the mermaid with magic and combat energy. This mermaid was really powerful. With so many people attacking at the same time, it actually had no effect on her. No, it was not that it was useless. It was just that they were all blocked by the water shield in front of her. The water was indeed the mermaid's home ground. It was a little too difficult to hit her. Hit that bed. The only female magician suddenly shouted. Everyone immediately aimed their attacks at the mermaid at the bed. Fortunately, the shell bed was not as resistant as the mermaid. After a few magic and combat energy attacks, it was immediately blasted into pieces. There was a black whirlpool under the bed. It was obviously a teleportation channel. They should be able to teleport out of this place and leave this place. Everyone was elated. Although no one doubted whether there was really an exit, they still heaved a huge sigh of relief when they saw it. It was always good to see hope, wasn't it? Hiss! The mermaid's temper became even more irritable when she saw her beloved bed being blasted by the food. The water pillars attacked faster. There were only 2 whirlpools at first, but now there were 4. Everyone had to avoid the water pillars and pay attention to the whirlpools at all times. It could be said that they were having a hard time dodging. At this moment, the man standing on the left of Shouzo suddenly could not dodge in time. He felt a strong suction force, and his body involuntarily moved towards the whirlpool. The man panicked, and almost without thinking, he pulled Shouzo over to take his place. Then, he successfully swapped places with Shouzo and escaped. Shouzo only had time to let out a scream before he was pulled in by the power of the whirlpool. Just when Shouzo thought that he was going to die, a fair hand suddenly reached out. The owner of the hand pulled Shouzo out skillfully, and she was sucked into the whirlpool in Shouzo's place. Feng Wu, Shouzo, who had successfully escaped, was not excited at all. He looked at Feng Wu, who was sucked into the whirlpool in despair. His heart was filled with guilt. Feng Wu, he shouted Feng Wu's name in despair. However, the whirlpool directly moved him away after sucking him in. No matter how Shouzo shouted, he could not call back Feng Wu, who was taken away. Chapter 393. Since the start of the battle with the mermaid, less than 20 of the original 30-plus people were left. Most of them were either killed by the water column, or brought to the mermaid by the whirlpool to become its food. Seeing more and more people die in the next second, one could imagine the panic in everyone's heart. However, this was not the time for them to retreat. They had to defeat this merman and successfully leave this place. In order to get out, everyone staked everything on the battle with the mermaid. They all knew that they had to leave this place successfully, or become the mermaid's food if they failed. At this moment, the mermaid beckoned to people like before. The whirlpool that dragged Feng Wu into it immediately moved towards the mermaid. The mermaid hissed twice as excitement flashed across its eyes. Among all the food, Feng Wu was undoubtedly the most attractive to it. Feng Wu's innate affinity and the rare vitality in her body all attracted the mermaid's desire to eat Feng Wu. Originally, the mermaid wanted to leave Feng Wu for last. Since it caught her early, it would be good to eat her early. The mermaid licked and swallowed. Thinking of the delicious food that was about to enter its mouth, it was extremely excited. No! Shouzo shouted loudly. Although he knew that he was no match for the mermaid, he still wanted to rush to Feng Wu's side with his fastest speed. She stretched out her hand with long sharp nails, and grabbed Fengwu out of the whirlpool. Just as she was about to grab Fengwu's heart, a long sword pierced through her chest. Hiss! The miserable cries caused the entire underwater tunnel to shake violently. Everyone was shocked by this sudden development. After the shock, they could not believe that such a powerful merman had actually been stabbed. So this was the correct way to kill a merman. Let's go. The female magician recovered quickly and immediately swam towards the exit. If they did not leave now, when would they? Ah! This voice was filled with killing intent and bloodthirsty. Everyone turned around and saw a red-haired, red-eyed woman in a red dress rushing towards them at an extremely fast speed. That earth-shattering aura made it clear at a glance that this was a powerful existence. Let's go! He had just killed one, and now another one had appeared. What was going on? Everyone didn't even look back. They immediately increased their speed and mana output, wanting to leave this dangerous place before the other big guy arrived. Everyone rushed towards the exit. After Fengwu stabbed the mermaid with her pure sword, she did not care whether she was dead or not. She pulled out her sword and left immediately. She pulled Xiazhua, who was not far away, and rushed towards the exit. Xiazhua felt as if something was pushing his body forward at an extremely fast speed. In fact, there really was something pushing them from behind. It was the group of spirits that followed Fengwu. Although they did not attack earlier, they had been carefully protecting Fengwu. Even the idea of using the whirlpool to complete the sneak attack was suggested by the Emperor Spirit. Then, Bao Bao and White Lotus thought that the idea was good and supported her. They did not expect it to succeed in the end. Fengwu did not know whether the mermaid would die or not. Anyway, it was like what Bao Bao said. After being injured by the pure sword, even if it did not die, it would take a long time for it to recover. Finally, at the last moment when the red figure arrived, everyone successfully ran to the teleportation point and finally left. All the spirits, hello zombie, goodbye zombie. After entering the teleportation point, Fengwu felt the world spin, and she appeared in a desert. What was this place? Fengwu was a little confused. There was no one around her. What happened? At this time in another space, Xiazhua frowned and looked around. It was an ice field. There was no one around except for 2 or 3 people who were fighting side by side. Yo, pretty boy, you are alone this time. Hand over your space ring. The man who spoke had an evil smile and looked at Xiazhua with a face full of evil intentions. The other 2 people beside him were the female magician who left first and a powerful swordsman. However, they did not intend to meddle in other people's business. They just looked around. When Xiazhua saw this person, he immediately recognized that he was the man who helped him escape not long ago. If this person did not plot against him, Fengwu would not be involved in the whirlpool to save him. If it was not for Fengwu's skills, if it was someone else, they would have died in the mermaid's hands. Xiazhua, who was always good-tempered, had a rare murderous intent towards this man. Although he did not have any power now, his father gave him a lot of self-defense items. It was just that he did not have a chance to use them, because Fengwu was protecting him. What's wrong, kid? Are you waiting for that woman to save you? A useless pretty boy like you should not come to a place like this. You are really overestimating yourself. The man sneered and looked at Xiazhua with disdain. If you want my space ring, come and get it yourself. Xiazhua looked at the man in front of him calmly, without a trace of panic in his eyes. The man was alert. Could it be that this kid still had some tricks up his sleeve? Kid, don't try to play tricks in front of me. The man cursed but did not immediately step forward. Although the man spoke with disdain, he had never really let down his guard. Who could walk out alive like that? Who would be a retard with a head full of grass? Young master. Suddenly, a surprised voice was heard. A slightly chubby girl ran towards Xiazhua excitedly. Yuan. Xiazhua's heart skipped a beat. He turned around and saw that it was his little maid, Yuan. Oh. Young master, are you alright? Yuan was worried sick. Young master, are you hurt? Were you bullied by anyone? Oh, if I knew it was so dangerous here. Yuan would not have let young master come no matter what. Yuan hugged Xiazhua's arm and leaned on his shoulder. It was raining heavily. Xiazhua patted Yuan Yuan's head dotingly. Yuan Yuan was an orphan. She was adopted by the family because of her outstanding talent. Because she was naive and did not know how to please the management, she was assigned to be a maid in the house of this useless son of the first wife. Yuan Yuan was a very loyal little girl. In his previous life, he almost died in the space crack. It was Yuan Yuan who saved him with her chubby little body. He loved Yuan Yuan like a little sister and swore that he would not let Yuan Yuan die for him again in this life. Chapter 394. Yuan Yuan was a very loyal little girl. In his previous life, he almost died under the spatial crack. It was Yuan Yuan, this little girl, who used her chubby little body to save him. To Yuan Yuan, he doted on her like a little sister, thinking that he would never let Yuan Yuan die for him again in this life. Aren't I fine now? Oh right, where's the housekeeper? You guys aren't together? Xiazhua did not see the housekeeper, so he asked. Yuan Yuan shook her head. I didn't see the housekeeper. Yuan Yuan and the housekeeper were originally together, but we were separated during the teleportation. Yuan Yuan and the housekeeper had already been through an emperor's tomb and successfully escaped from that emperor's tomb. They were teleported to a new map, but it was a pity that the two of them did not meet again during the teleportation. Yuan Yuan originally felt uneasy, but fortunately, after seeing the young master, her uneasiness disappeared. Young master. Yuan Yuan wanted to say something, but she was unexpectedly interrupted. Brat, quickly hand over your spatial ring, and this little girl's as well. I don't have that much time to wait for you. The one who spoke was the man who made things difficult for Xiazhua. This person had been eyeing Xiazhua for a long time, and had been drooling over the good things in his spatial ring for a long time. This time, no matter what, he would not let go of this opportunity. Not to mention that it was just a little chubby girl. Even if it was an expert of the same level as him, he would still have the power to fight. Who are you? Yuan Yuan turned to look at the man who spoke, as if she only just realized that there was someone standing in front of her young master. Why do you care who I am? Quickly hand over your spatial ring. The man said impatiently. You want to rob the young master? Yuan Yuan's eyes turned cold, and the original innocent expression on her face became a little strange. Little girl, if you don't want to die, hurry up. The man wanted to say a few harsh words to make them quickly hand over their things, but he did not expect that the little girl, who was not a threat in his eyes, would directly pull out her sword and stab towards the man's heart. This sword contained many changes, and with one look, one could tell that it was not something an ordinary sword technique could achieve. The man was shocked, and immediately raised his sword to block. Although he blocked the sword, he took a few steps back, and the blood in his chest churned. The man was shocked. Who exactly was this girl? She called that pretty boy young master. Could it be that the person with such sword skills was just a maid, or an attendant of a pretty boy young master? Regardless of how shocked the man was, Yuan Yuan changed his sword stance, and continued to attack without stopping. Every time he blocked Yuan Yuan's sword, the man felt that the sword was getting heavier and heavier. Finally, after more than 10 moves, the man could no longer hold the sword in his hand, and was sent flying by Yuan Yuan's sword. The sword in the man's hand was deflected several meters away, by Roly-Poly's sword. The man's face was pale, and there was a long sword in his heart. You. The man only managed to say 2 words before he spat out a mouthful of blood. In the end, his eyes dimmed and lost their luster. Pulling out the sword, Yuan Yuan casually shook the sword under the horrified gazes of the other 2 spectators. The blood on the sword was casually flung to the ground, and not a single drop of blood was left on the sword. The sword was still as clean as a mirror. If it was not for the fact that someone had witnessed this battle, no one would believe that this sword that did not have a single drop of blood on it was stained with human blood. The female magician and sword master, who had been observing the battle, did not think that this ordinary girl would have such strength. Also, the identity of this young man had aroused their suspicions. An ordinary aristocrat would definitely not be able to afford an attendant of this level. Who exactly was this young man? The two of them were a little regretful. Perhaps they should have made a move just now. That way, they might have been able to form a good relationship with him in the future. It was a pity that money could not buy them. After Yuan finished dealing with the lowly man, who dared to be disrespectful to her young master, she shifted her gaze to the other two people. She saw that they had no intention of making a move, and that they did not speak up to bully her young master with the man just now. Therefore, Yuan's gaze only lingered on the two of them for a moment before moving away. Fengwu was unaware of all this. She was currently in the middle of a desert, and there was not a single person around her. In the sky, the scorching sun looked as if it was going to roast people. Fengwu's little face was red, and there was a thin layer of sweat on her forehead. She held a water bag in her hand, and gulped down a few mouthfuls of water. Bao Bao, where is this place? There was no one around, so Fengwu could only ask Bao Bao, who seemed to know a lot of things. If I'm not mistaken, this place should be the tomb of the Tsar. Bao Bao really did not let Fengwu know. Tsar. Fengwu tilted her little head, trying to recall if she had read about this character in a book. After thinking for a while, she recalled. I know him. The book said that the Tsar was the master of the Sand Country. In the ancient times, he was also a peerless expert. Later on, because of the War of the Two Worlds, the Tsar and the Sand Country were destroyed in that battle. Now the Sand Country no longer exists. The Fengwu girl liked to read, and had read a lot of knowledge before. She had some understanding of the Sand Country. That's right. The Sand Country has long perished. Even the Tsar's tomb was built by the survivors of the Sand Country for the Tsar. I'm not surprised that the sea god moved the Tsar's tomb here, but it's too unreasonable for him to move the entire Sand Country here. Bao Bao could not understand why the sea god would move the entire Sand Country here. Even the Spirit King's tomb had only been moved, hadn't it? I think I know the reason, the Imperial Spirit King said. There were over 1,000 spirit bodies following behind the Imperial Spirit. Under such intense light, they did not feel uncomfortable at all. All of them were living more casually than Fengwu. What's the reason? Fengwu asked, blinking her big eyes. The Imperial Spirit King smiled and said, the reason is very simple. The Tsar's tomb has long been connected to the Sand Country. Back then, when the Sand Country was destroyed, the last survivors of the Sand Country sealed up the entire country as the Tsar's tomb. Therefore, if the sea god wanted to move the Tsar's tomb, he could only move the Sand Country along with it. So the reason was that simple. So that was the case. Fengwu nodded in understanding. So the place they were at was the Sand Country. Fengwu thought of the description of the Sand Country in the book. It was an oasis in the desert, the most beautiful desert city. However, she did not see any oasis. What was going on? Fengwu asked her question directly. The Imperial Spirit King explained to Fengwu in a good-natured manner. So, the description in the book was merely the scenery of the ancient desert city. Chapter 395. The Sand Country only had one city, which was the ancient desert city. However, its territory was very big. The ancient desert city spanned over 10,000 kilometers of desert, and all of it belonged to the Sand Country. Of course, in a place surrounded by sand like this, the living conditions were not good. The reason why no one came to fight for territory was because the Sand Country had a larger territory. Many small countries only had half the size of the Sand Country. For the Sand Country to have such a large territory, it was already considered an amazing existence among the small countries. If we want to leave, is the only way to leave this place if we find the Sand Emperor's tomb? As Fengwu had a group of smart helpers, she was able to think through many things. That's right. This is the only way to leave. Bao Bao nodded. Fengwu understood. Although she understood, how were they going to find the rumored Sand Country that had been destroyed in this desert that had no end in sight? She wasn't afraid. Her master had said that she mustn't give up easily in the face of any difficulties. She would definitely find the Sand Emperor's tomb. Fengwu clenched her paws cutely, strengthening her conviction. The scorching sun above their heads was getting hotter and hotter, making them feel dizzy. Although Fengwu had battle chi to protect her, she still felt a little tired. Under Baobao's suggestion, Fengwu found a pile of rocks and hid under a big rock to hide from the sun. She also ate something while she was at it. There was a lot of food in Fengwu's spatial ring. Usually, as long as she ate something that was not bad, she would collect a big pile and put it into her spatial ring. Her friends all knew that she had a hobby of collecting delicacies. Therefore, when they came across something good, they would also pack a big pile for her. As a result, even Fengwu herself did not know how much food she had in her spatial ring. Fengwu used her spiritual force to dig out a large bowl of porridge from a pile of delicious food. There was a faint osmanthus fragrance in the porridge. She didn't know who packed it for her, but Fengwu kept it in her ring and didn't eat much. Now that she was in a desert, she finally wanted to eat porridge. Fengwu gobbled down the porridge with barbecued meat and a plate of pickled radishes. It tasted delicious. Many people would not have a good appetite in hot weather, but Fengwu girl had never had such a problem. She would never let the weather affect her appetite. Baobao was sitting next to Fengwu and gnawing on a large chicken leg. Bai Lian was even more delighted as she hugged a whole chicken. After being locked up in a place for so many years, Bai Lian had never eaten anything decent. He had never even eaten meat. Although he grew up in a pool, there was not a single fish in the pool. He usually ate fruits to fill his stomach. It would be a dream to eat meat that only appeared in the inheritance. Ever since he followed Fengwu, Bai Lian, who had been a vegetarian for 20 years, finally tasted meat. Bai Lian was almost moved to tears when he tasted the delicious taste of meat for the first time. He had a crazy love for meat since then. As for the king's spirit, they did not need to eat anything at all. They were originally spirits. Spirits did not need to eat human food. Fengwu and Baobao were eating and chatting. Suddenly a voice sounded. Oliphman shared Chukri, let's go to the front and rest. It's too hot. Elena, and I can't take it anymore. A weak voice was heard. From the voice, one could tell that it was a young woman. May Irene is right. I can't take it anymore. This woman should be Elena. Her voice was pleasing to the ear, making people want to love her tenderly. Okay, then let's go to the front and rest. The three men immediately nodded when Elena spoke. There's someone here. Alifman said with some surprise. He didn't expect that someone would arrive here earlier than them. He felt a little surprised. She's just a single woman. Just drive her away. May Irene, who could not stand the heat, said grumpily. That's not good. Elena was a little hesitant. What's not good about it? She's been resting here for so long. She's taking up so much space by herself. If Mingxi comes later, there won't be a place to rest. May Irene knew that Elena was interested in Mingxi, so she deliberately said Mingxi's name, so that Elena could not refuse. But Elena was a little hesitant. She did not want to make things difficult for a single woman for a place to rest. However, they also needed to rest, and the only place to rest was under this big rock. In addition, Mingxi had taken care of her a lot along the way. She also wanted her sweetheart to have a good place to rest. She did not want an outsider to disturb him. The three men exchanged glances with each other. They were all Elena's pursuers. Although they didn't know each other before entering the divine tomb, they were deeply attracted to Elena's cuteness and kindness. Mingxi was their common love rival. The three of them were very unhappy that Elena was treating this man so favorably. If it were not for the fact that they could not beat Mingxi, they would have already dragged Mingxi to the side and secretly killed him. I see that the space under this rock is quite big. We can all sit if we squeeze together. Why must you chase the little girl away? May Irene, your thoughts are too vicious. At this time, a woman's voice sounded. This woman was not very old. She was about 17 or 18 years old like the two girls in front of her. Beside the young girl was a man. This man was actually Lu Chen, the son of Island Master Le. A man and a woman slowly walked over like a pair of jade. Fongli, Lu Chen, you two came back so quickly? Chukri was a little surprised to see them, but he was not surprised. It was obvious that they were originally together. Didn't we say that we would split up to explore? The few of you are still in the mood to find a place to sit and enjoy the shade. Fongli looked at May Irene with disdain. She was very disdainful of May Irene. We are tired from exploring. Why don't you let us rest? May Irene said unhappily. Your so-called rest is to snatch someone else's place to rest, and then chase them away? Feng Li smiled meaningfully. What do you mean? This place is not hers to begin with. Moreover, this is a world where the strong are respected. If she can't keep her place to rest, how can she blame us? Sophistry. The two of them started arguing. The main character of this matter, Feng Wu, was holding her big bowl of porridge. Her eyes were wide open as she looked at the quarreling people in front of her. Her small mouth was constantly stuffing food into it. Mingxi, Senior Mingxi? Feng Wu was a little happy. She had made up her mind to wait here for her senior Mingxi. Stop arguing. Elena was so anxious that she stomped her feet. The three men and Luchun were also trying to mediate. Unfortunately, it was really hard to mediate when women quarreled. Chapter 396. What are you doing? A silvery white figure gradually approached. It was a golden-haired, blue-eyed young man. The young man's facial features were perfect, as if they were the masterpiece of the god of creation. His temperament was as noble as the bright moon above the clouds, making people unable to reach him. Mingxi. The three women stood up at the same time and tidied up their appearance. Their slightly shy and nervous expressions were completely different from before. Elena looked shyly at the young man walking towards them. Irene knew that she couldn't win against Elena. Although she didn't want to fight with Elena for Mingxi, she didn't want Mingxi to see her bad side. As for Feng Li, she also had a faint affection for Mingxi. However, she knew that she was only the daughter of an ordinary hunter. If she hadn't been lucky enough to be discovered with her talent for magic, she might still be hunting with her father in the village. And Mingxi was not a child of an ordinary family. Feng Li could see this, so she had never shown much enthusiasm or initiative towards Mingxi. But at the same time, she did not want such a perfect young man to see her arguing with others. Elena was about to answer Mingxi's question when she saw a shadow pass by her and rush into the arms of the beautiful young man. Senior Mingxi. Feng Wu rubbed her little head against Mingxi's chest happily. Being able to see Mingxi put Feng Wu in a good mood. She felt like she could eat 2 more drumsticks. Xiao Wu. Mingxi was also very surprised. He didn't expect to meet Feng Wu here. Ever since the two of them separated, he had been worried about Feng Wu's safety. He was worried that this innocent girl would be in danger, whether she would be injured and so on. Now that he saw Feng Wu appear in front of him safe and sound, Mingxi smiled and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Elena looked at this scene with a sour feeling in her heart. She could not believe that Mingxi would let this strange girl throw herself into his arms. She knew that Mingxi was a person who looked gentle, but was actually not easy to get close to. Every time she took the initiative to get close to him, he would easily push her away. No matter how hard she tried to express her feelings, Mingxi always had a way to put distance between them without leaving a trace. This made Elena, who had always been successful among men, very depressed. Originally, she thought that Mingxi was born this way. Didn't he treat other women the same way? Whether it was Mei Irene or Feng Li, Mingxi was equally cold. This made her even more confident that she could become a different woman in his heart. She had always believed that she and Mingxi were predestined by fate, that they were destined to be together. If it wasn't fated, how could she have met Mingxi the first time she was teleported out? The second time they were teleported out, the two of them were still together. Who could say that they weren't fated to be together? Apart from her and Mingxi, they had met the others when they entered the second teleportation point. Although Mei Irene, Olifman, Sherrod, and Chukri were all her old friends, Elena was different. Elena, who had always believed that she was a little different to Mingxi, suddenly felt a deep sense of danger when she saw Mingxi hugging Feng Wu and comforting her softly. Was this girl a different existence to Mingxi? No. Mingxi is mine. From the first time I saw him, I knew that we were fated to be together. No one can take Mingxi away from me. Mei Irene was no less shocked than Elena when she saw this scene. It was fine if she lost to Elena. Elena's family background and talent were no match for hers. But what was up with this woman? Mei Irene looked left and right, But she couldn't see where she lost to Fengwu. She hated Fengwu, a woman who was inferior to her, but who was able to make Mingxi look at her differently. Feng Li's attitude was the best. She knew that a man like Mingxi wouldn't belong to an ordinary girl like her. She might be envious and slightly jealous of Fengwu, who was in Mingxi's arms, but she didn't hate or feel indignant. Mingxi, this is... Elena squeezed out a smile on her pale face. She looked like she was pretending to be strong and gentle. However, Mingxi turned a blind eye to her attitude. He maintained a polite smile on his face and replied indifferently, "This is my junior sister Fengwu. She's one of the people who entered the sea god's tomb with me this time." Fengwu poked her head out of Mingxi's arms and turned to look at the pale Elena. "Wow, look, these three women all like this man. But he's really good looking. I've never seen such a good-looking man before. Is he our benefactor's boyfriend?" "I think so. Didn't you see how our benefactor threw herself into his arms the moment she saw him? But this man is not bad. His body has a rich natural aura. It smells so good. He's really a man of the highest quality. He's worthy of our benefactor. Look, these two women are so shameless. Especially the one who's talking. She clearly wants Xiao Wu to die, but she's still acting like she's been cheated on. Isn't that so? Bitches are so pretentious. Who does she think she is? How dare she fight with our benefactor for a man? Let's kill her." A group of spirits surrounded Elena and Irene and pointed at them. Feng Li, on the other hand, was ignored because she didn't have any ill intentions. Spirit bodies were sensitive, especially to the changes in qi. They didn't need to look to know if a person had good intentions. They could feel it with their senses. "I won't give Senior Mingxi to you. He'll be the father of my child." Although Fengwu was happy to see her beloved Mingxi, she had been listening to the spirits' conversation. From these conversations, the Fengwu girl knew that someone was trying to steal her father from Xiao Yi. At this moment, her little universe exploded. After hearing Mingxi's explanation, Elena didn't even have time to breathe a sigh of relief. She was immediately stifled by Fengwu's words and almost suffered internal injuries. Elena's face was almost distorted. This woman was too shameless. She was just a junior, but she actually said that he was the father of her future child. How old was she? At most she was 15 or 16. She was so young, and yet she was talking about a child. She was simply shameless to the extreme. She looked at Mingxi hopefully, hoping that Mingxi would refute her and let her know that she shouldn't speak carelessly. It was best to stop daydreaming. However, she didn't expect that Mingxi would only smile helplessly and dotingly. He stroked Fengwu's hair and said, "Xiao Wu, stop fooling around." When Elena heard these words that didn't contain any criticism, she was so sad that she almost died. Could it be that Mingxi was really interested in this shameless woman? No. How could this be? She wouldn't agree. She wouldn't agree no matter what. Chapter 397. When Eileen heard these words that did not contain any accusation, her heart almost died. Could it be that Mingxi was really interested in this shameless woman? No. How could this be? She would not agree. No matter what, she would not agree. She did not even think about why Mingxi had to ask her to agree to it. Hehe, Fengwu is such an interesting girl. Anyone with a functioning ear would know how insincere those words were. I didn't expect to meet a junior from Mingxi here. Why don't we all sit down and talk? The sun is too hot. Lu Chen pointed at the scorching sun above his head, pretending to be relaxed as he spoke. That's right. Let's go hide from the sun first. Olifman, Sherrod and Chukri agreed. The three of them secretly wiped the sweat off their heads. The atmosphere was too depressing. The three of them felt even hotter. Mingxi nodded in agreement. This place was indeed unbearably hot. Thus, with Lu Chen taking the lead, the few of them hid in the place where Fengwu was hiding from the sun. It was actually a small space made up of piles of rocks. Although it was not very big, it was still enough for the few of them to squeeze together. Fengwu, we saw you eating just now. Do you have more? We can buy it with money. Can you sell us some food? Sherrod and Sherrod were already so hungry that they could not care less. They had no choice but to eat potions along the way, because they had already run out of food. Even if the three of them were born in a good family, they could not afford to use such expensive potions to fill their stomachs. They had brought enough potions, medicine, scrolls, and weapons for this exploration of the sea god's tomb. However, they had brought the least amount of food and water. How could they have imagined that they would end up in a desert like this? Who else could tell them that this place was clearly the sea god's tomb? Why would there be a desert here? This was illogical. I can sell some to you. Fengwu was still interested in earning money. Only by earning more money could she buy all kinds of delicious food. Then what do you have here? Give us some of everything. Don't worry, we won't shortchange you. Olafman did not expect to be able to buy food. He almost thought that he was dreaming. In this kind of place without food and water, who would be willing to take out some food? That was why they wanted to buy food with money. They did not expect that she would be willing to sell them food. As long as there was food, they could accept it even if it was 10 times more expensive than outside. No matter how expensive it was, it could not be more expensive than potions. But it turned out that they were too naive. What? 100 gold coins. Chukri pointed at the food that Fengwu had divided into several bags, which were packed according to the number of people. Everyone was given a bag of 100 gold coins each. The bag was made of craft paper. Fengwu's space ring contained all kinds of things. No one knew when she had put the craft paper bag in, but it came in handy now. Are these things gilded with gold? How can they be so expensive? The people of Heavenly Wind Continent had always valued martial arts. Anything related to magic or dochi could be sold at a high price. On the other hand, food could not be sold at a high price. Even in the most luxurious restaurant in the continent, a meal would only cost a few hundred gold coins. However, Fengwu only sold some snacks that could be bought anywhere on the street for 100 gold coins. In their eyes, this price was a little too high. If you think it's too expensive, you don't have to buy it. Fengwu looked calmly at the sun hanging high in the sky and said, I'll buy it. Chukri was only surprised by the price. He did not say that he would not buy it. If he did not buy it, even if they wanted to buy it for 500 gold coins, no one would be willing to sell it to them. Why wouldn't we buy it? This brat is not making a fuss over nothing. He came to Fengwu to collect money. This is mine. This is mine. Here's the money. I'll take one too. Soon, these fellows each took away a big bag of food. In front of Fengwu was a pile of gold coins. Fengwu looked at the pile of gold coins and smiled. Mingxi could easily tell that she was in a good mood. He patted the girl's head and did not ask much about the sudden appearance of Eggface. He only thought that it was an opportunity that Fengwu obtained in the sea god's tomb. Although Fengwu's food was a little expensive, everyone still bought it. Even May, Irene, and Elena each bought a big bag of food and stored it in their own spatial items. With food, these fellows who had been hungry for a long time naturally had to eat a big meal. Each of them took out the amount they wanted and ate in big mouthfuls. As they ate, they chatted. These people were all sent here after passing the first emperor's tomb. Although they had already passed the first emperor's tomb, they did not understand the situation of the sea god's tomb. They thought that it was a normal trial. Quick, look over there. Do you see words on that rock? Luqian was just casually looking outside, but he didn't expect to see an unexpected scene. The continent's common language was gradually appearing. Those words all appeared out of thin air. Let's go take a look. These people stopped eating and quickly walked towards the big rock. The few of them walked closer and saw that the words that appeared on the big rock were, First stage, pass through the desert and find the ancient desert city. Interesting. It seems like it's the same place we were sent to the first time. There's also a hint. Luqian laughed. But where is the ancient desert city? May, Irene asked curiously. You'll know when we get there. Chukri said indifferently. Let's go. Let's go back and sit down. The weather is so hot that it's about to roast us. Sherrod fanned himself with his hand. Returning to the big rock, everyone sat together and discussed how to find the ancient desert city. Where was the ancient desert city? They did not even have a specific direction. If they wanted to find it, they had to determine the direction first. However, Ming-Shi and the others did not know that they were not the only ones in the desert. There were others who had also been sent to this Sand Country instance dungeon. The only difference was that everyone had landed in a different place. At the same time, the same hint appeared in many places in the desert. Some of these people who saw the hint lowered their heads and frowned in thought. Some sat somewhere to avoid the sun, seemingly not caring about the hint at all. Most of them were like Ming-Shi and the others, sitting together and discussing where the ancient desert city was. Ming-Shi and the others discussed for a long time before finally deciding on a direction. This was also the direction that Ming-Shi and the others thought was most likely to appear in the ancient desert city. Chapter 398. Fengwu had been sitting at the side and listening to their conversation, her little hand tugging at the corner of Ming-Shi's shirt. Ming-Shi noticed that Fengwu seemed to have something to say. After everyone finished their discussion, he turned to face Fengwu. "What's wrong? Do you have something to say?" Ming-Shi smiled gently, but there was more sincerity in his smile compared to when he was facing Elena and the others. This place was only so big. Even if the others didn't want to eavesdrop, they could still hear Ming-Shi's question to Fengwu. Everyone was quite curious about Fengwu. Ming-Shi wasn't someone who was easy to get close to, but he treated Fengwu so differently. How could they not be curious? "Senior Ming-Shi, do you know where this place is?" Fengwu blinked her eyes, bit her lower lip, and suddenly asked seriously. "I don't know." Ming-Shi shook his head. He really didn't know where this place was. He only knew that he was in the sea god's tomb. Isn't this the sea god's tomb? What a stupid question. Irene May glanced at Fengwu in disdain. "Irene May, don't be like this." Elena gave Fengwu an apologetic smile. However, when she looked over, she realized that neither Ming-Shi nor Fengwu had looked over at her. Elena lowered her head in embarrassment, hiding the hatred in the depths of her eyes. "This is the Sand Country, and also the Sand Emperor's tomb." Fengwu's voice was still soft, but the words she said stunned everyone. What did she mean by this was the Sand Country? What did she mean by this was the Sand Emperor's tomb? Wasn't this the sea god's tomb? Sand Country? Based on what I know, there was a place called the Sand Country in ancient times. There are records in the ancient books in my family. The Sand Country disappeared together with the death of the Tsar in ancient times. No one has even found the remains of the Sand Country. Ming-Shi thought back a little, and recalled that there was a record of the Sand Country in a book he had read when he was young. However, Fengwu said that this place was the Sand Country that had disappeared since ancient times. This was truly too unbelievable. If he wasn't familiar with Fengwu's temperament and knew that she wouldn't lie, Ming-Shi wouldn't believe such unbelievable words if they came from someone else's mouth. "Do you think this is the Sand Country or the Tsar's tomb? What kind of joke is this? This is clearly the sea god's tomb. Is your brain damaged from the heat?" May Irene sneered. It wasn't easy for her to strike a blow at this woman whom she didn't like. Of course, she wouldn't be merciful. "You're the one who's out of your mind." Fengwu glared at her and replied earnestly. "You." May Irene was enraged. She was just about to charge up and fight it out with Fengwu when she was held back by Eileen. Eileen shook her head, indicating that she didn't want to. They couldn't take the initiative to attack Fengwu in front of Ming-Shi. May Irene could only return to her seat, her expression still a little unwilling. "Why do you say that this is the Sand Country, and also the Tsar's tomb?" He ignored the others. He was very sure that Fengwu must have known something, which was why she had said this. "The places we've been transported to the past 2 times were the tombs of human emperors from ancient times. Back then, the sea god knew that he didn't have much time left. Fearing that his tomb would be stolen by humans when his power weakened after his death, he used his divine power to move the tombs of all the famous human emperors into his tomb. Meanwhile, the sea god's own tomb was surrounded by the tombs of these emperors. It's very difficult to find it, so you can only rely on luck. And this isn't the most troublesome thing. In order to ensure that his tomb would never be stolen, the sea god sealed the souls of those ancient emperors and those who were buried with him. Those sealed souls would be tortured by their souls every day. When those souls were injured, they would produce a strong murderous aura. That murderous aura became the strongest defense in the sea god's tomb. Fengwu told Mingxi everything that she had heard from Bao Bao. Although there were still a few fellows who were eavesdropping, she couldn't be bothered. She only wanted Senior Mingxi to know the truth. This is unbelievable. The sea god is an innate divine being. How could his heart be so cruel? He imprisoned the spirit of the human race's emperor for 10,000 years, just to make me guard his coffin. Feng Li exclaimed in disbelief. Yeah, it's simply unbelievable. Lu Chen sighed. Wait, how do you know all this? Mei Irene discovered this loophole and directly questioned Fengwu. In the tomb I stayed in last time, there were some related records. I knew after reading it. Bao Bao had taught her this. Bao Bao's identity was an absolute secret. When Fengwu was about to tell the truth, Bao Bao and the other spirits had already thought of what to say. So that's how it is. Everyone nodded. Although Mei Irene wanted to cause trouble, there was no big problem with what Fengwu said. She didn't have a valid reason to do so, so she could only sit aside angrily and sulk. So, we thought we were just trying to break through, but in reality, these tombs are the burial grounds of all the emperors of the past. Olifman stroked his chin. He didn't doubt Fengwu's words. After all, the zombies that Fengwu mentioned matched their experiences. So, if we want to leave this place, the only way is to find the Sand Emperor's tomb and kill our way out. Eileen was also a very smart girl. It didn't take her long to figure out some things. Yeah. Fengwu nodded. How would we know where the Sand Emperor's tomb is? Sherrod said in a bad mood. We don't need to know because there will be a hint for us, Mingxi said calmly. Yes, there will be a hint. Everyone's eyes lit up as they finally thought of this. It's good that there is a hint. If there wasn't a hint, and we had to find the Sand Emperor's tomb, that would be terrible. The entire desert is so big, who knows where we can find it? Everyone complained. The sun outside was still so bright, and there was no sign of it cooling down at all. Everyone could only continue to hide under the rocks, hoping that it would be better at night. The desert at night wasn't as good as everyone thought. The sun had set, but the moon had risen again. If the sun brought endless heat, then the moon brought endless cold. It was still so hot during the day, but at night, it was as cold as the extreme north. It was even raining and snowing. Although the weather suddenly became cold, everyone still decided to catch up at night. Each of them held a magic umbrella that Fengwu had bought for several times more than usual. This umbrella could not only block the rain, but also the wind. The wind blocking effect was only 30%, but it was better than nothing. Chapter 399. The desert at night was completely different from the desert during the day. During the day, the temperature was as high as 40 degrees Celsius. But at night, the temperature was as low as -10 degrees Celsius. Walking in the desert, everyone was still wearing summer clothes. Their clothes were very thin, and only a few of them had extra insulation. Some of them were so cold that their teeth were chattering. If it was cold weather, it would be impossible to see this in many countries. Fengwu's clothes couldn't keep her warm. She could only use her douqi to create a shield for herself to resist the cold. Mingxi, on the other hand, didn't seem to feel the cold at all. He seemed to be in a good state. Elena and the others were guessing how powerful Mingxi was. Even such cold weather couldn't do anything to him. What they didn't know was that the cold weather didn't affect him at all, because it was night. At night, the moon was bright in the sky. The sun and moon of this world were real, not illusions created by the god of the sea. The sea god used her divine power to borrow a trace of the sun essence from the land of extreme yang, and then obtained a trace of the moon's extreme yin energy from the extreme cold of the extreme north. Only then did these two sun and moon, which were almost identical to the real thing, appear. As the next emperor of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom, Mingxi was naturally protected by the moon, so the cold couldn't hurt him at all. Because she didn't know this, Elena thought that Mingxi, who wasn't afraid of the cold, was a hidden expert. The group braved the wind and snow and walked forward. They didn't know how long they had been walking. Although the wind and snow didn't get heavier, it didn't seem like it was going to stop. After walking for a while, not far ahead, they actually found a small rocky mountain. At the foot of the rocky mountain, there was a cave. The cave was still flickering with fire. Mingxi knew that it was impossible for them to continue walking in such cold weather. Even if everyone had the protection of magic and Do Qi, it was impossible to walk too far. After all, magic and Do Qi were consumables. Once they were consumed, they could only wait for them to recover by themselves or consume potions. In the wind and snow, waiting for Do Qi and magic to recover by themselves was like waiting for death. They would be frozen into ice sculptures before they could recover their strength. On the other hand, consuming potions would burn too much money, and they didn't have that many potions to consume. After walking for such a long time tonight, everyone was almost at their limit. They had to find a place to rest. After everyone exchanged their opinions, everyone agreed to go to that place to take shelter from the wind and snow. At most, they would walk more during the day to make up for the distance. As he walked into the cave, he could feel the faint light of the fire coming from the cave. Could it be that there was someone inside? Everyone guessed. Regardless of whether there was anyone inside, they were all so cold that they couldn't stand it anymore. At most, they would just squeeze in with the people inside. After making up his mind, Mingxi walked at the front, followed closely by Fengwu, Elena, and the other girls. The rest of the youths walked at the back. They carefully moved forward and finally entered the cave. Sure enough, there were people in the cave, and they were familiar faces. It was Zicheng and Eve. The two of them were quite lucky, and hadn't been separated from each other since entering the tomb of the gods. In addition to the two girls, there were two men. One of them had a long sword beside him, while the other had nothing beside him. However, just by looking at his magician's robe, one could tell that he was a magician. The one with the long sword was called Junzia, a direct descendant of the Jun family of the ancient eastern country. The other man was Caesar. Of course, it was impossible for Caesar to be separated from the female lead. Even though they had been teleported twice, they hadn't been separated. Along the way, their relationship had improved a little. Zicheng had raised his favorability to over 90, but unfortunately, it still hadn't reached 100. Zicheng knew that the calmer and more self-controlled people like him, the harder it was to raise his favorability. She wasn't in a hurry. She was confident that she could win this man over. The four people in the cave were shocked by the sudden appearance of Mingxi's group, especially Zicheng. She didn't expect to meet the person she didn't want to meet the most so soon. Back on Demon Wind Island, in order to obtain the demon-suppressing sword, she had released the ancient demon general and almost caused a disaster. Mingxi, who had witnessed everything, would definitely report this to the school. When that happened, what awaited her would be a virgin from Notre Dame du Starlight. Because of this, Zicheng's face turned pale. Even Caesar didn't notice it. Their attention was now focused on Mingxi's group, who had just entered the cave. "I'm sorry, the snowstorm outside is too heavy. Can we rest here for the night?" Luqian asked sincerely. Of course. Junzia nodded. Although he was expressionless and looked a little cold, from his words, one could tell that he wasn't a cold person. Thank you. Luqian represented everyone and thanked Junzia. Junzia nodded nonchalantly and didn't look at them anymore. Mingxi led Luqian and the rest to build a fire to warm themselves. Fortunately, everyone had brought along quite a few magical items to start a fire in the wild. After walking for a while, Luqian and the rest were tired and thirsty. The moment they sat down, they took out the food they had bought from Fengwu. Ignoring the fact that there were outsiders around, they started eating in big mouthfuls. "Senior Mingxi, I didn't expect to see you here." Eve looked at Mingxi in surprise. Eve had learned her lesson this time. She didn't rush up to Fengwu and bark at her. Instead, she started to ignore Fengwu. Mingxi replied with a faint smile. Those who knew him well would know that this was just Mingxi's habitual smile. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Eve clearly didn't know. Because of Mingxi's reply, she gave Fengwu a provocative look. She knew that Fengwu was interested in Mingxi. If she could steal Senior Mingxi's heart, wouldn't Fengwu cry herself to death? The more Eve thought about it, the more she felt that this method was feasible. Eve's gaze towards Mingxi softened, with a hint of girlish shyness. Eve wanted to attract Mingxi's attention, but of course, it wasn't just to take revenge on Fengwu. Seeing her in pain was only one of the reasons. More importantly, she herself felt that Mingxi was an extremely outstanding man. Although she didn't know what his family background was like, from his aura, he was definitely from a noble family. His status was quite compatible with hers. In this way, she could attack Fengwu and get a peerless handsome man. How could Eve not be interested? She could already see the boys and girls in school who admired Ming, she looking at her with envy and jealousy. If Mingxi knew what she was thinking, he would definitely tell her that she was thinking too much. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.